Chapter 1190. Chen Zhao looked at the plesiosaurs. There was no pity or sympathy here. If Chen Zhao didn't kill them, they would kill Chen Zhao. This was the most primitive world with the most primitive rules. Every time Chen Zhao killed a plesiosaur and absorbed the earth essence from its body, his body would become stronger. When the earth essence in his body reached a certain level, it would condense into an elixir. Chen Zhao didn't need to condense it. The earth essence would condense itself. The elixir was already formed, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't solid enough. The elixir was still in a liquid state. It needed a large amount of earth essence to condense. After killing so many plesiosaurs, Chen Zhao attracted more underground creatures. There were strong and weak ones. The weaker subterranean creatures were the bigger rats. They didn't dare to attack Chen Zhao, but they fought for food with him. They tore at the plesiosaur corpses in groups. Chen Zhao didn't have time to deal with these rats. Just then the rats suddenly stopped eating. Their gazes were all focused on the steam. Chen Zhao's pupils constricted. Something was coming. Suddenly Chen Zhao felt danger. Chen Zhao immediately activated Qingyi Cloud and blocked the dark lava in front of him. But the dark lava was pierced first. A wave of power attacked him with an unstoppable momentum. Chen Zhao was sent flying hundreds of meters away. Pain. That was Chen Zhao's feeling. Qingyi Cloud was broken instantly. If he wasn't strong enough, this attack would be enough to kill him. Chen Zhao looked into the mist. He could vaguely see a red ball. Its entire body was burning. Chen Zhao released all the electricity stored in the eye of the lightning. Terrifying electricity spread in the mist. The entire space was filled with electricity, making crackling sounds. The creature's strange cry came from the mist too. It seemed to work. That thing couldn't withstand electricity. Chen Zhao charged through the mist toward the ball of fire. When Chen Zhao saw it clearly, he was still shocked. It was a huge bird that was burning with flames. This was not a large bird whose body had been set on fire, but rather it was a flame. A thought popped up in Chen Zhao's mind. Phoenix. Flames formed every inch of its body. This was a true immortal bird. The phoenix flapped its flaming wings, and the surrounding steam was blown away. By then, Chen Zhao was already in front of him. Chen Zhao couldn't care less about how hot the phoenix was. In any case, it was just a punch that landed on the undying bird. The immortal bird was sent flying. Chen Zhao approached it again. Another punch landed on the undying bird. The undying bird pecked at Chen Zhao with its beak. The immortal bird's blood landed on Chen Zhao. He felt a bone-piercing pain. If this were to continue, even if he managed to kill the undying bird, he would still be burned to death. Chen Zhao didn't want to continue. He took out the zither and the 12 stone swords. 12 stone swords slashed at the phoenix. The phoenix cried out loudly. The stone sword had caused great damage to it. The undying bird seemed to have realized that it was about to die. Its body suddenly began to shrink, and as its body shrank, its temperature increased. Legend has it that the immortal bird had the ability to rise from the ashes, which was the legendary nirvana. Chen Zhao wouldn't let it go through nirvana, but its body had already shrunk by half. The temperature had increased several times. Even though he was more than 10 meters away, Chen Zhao could not withstand the heat. The stone swords even melted. Even the stone swords couldn't withstand the scorching heat. The undying bird shrank even more. It couldn't continue like this. Chen Zhao released all the dark lava and wrapped it around the undying bird. At this moment, the dark magma began to boil like boiling water. Chen Zhao didn't know that dark lava had a boiling point. But he couldn't back down now. Under Chen Zhao's control, the dark lava pierced inwards and shot through the undying bird's body. The undying bird's nirvana finally stopped. Its body stopped too. Monsters no longer attacked Chen Zhao. In fact, as soon as the undying bird appeared, all the other monsters had fled. Chen Zhao walked toward the undying bird's body. The undying bird wasn't as hot as before. Its body was as calm as a normal creature. Chen Zhao realized that the undying bird's blood was merging with the dark lava. Chen Zhao was more concerned about whether there was gold in the undying bird's body. But when Chen Zhao pried open the undying bird's body, he found a golden bead. Was this the pure essence of the earth? No, this was already an internal alchemy, right? Had he killed an undying bird that had reached the emptiness realm? That wasn't right either. It should be like him, only half complete. Chen Zhao had comprehended the emptiness realm. While it had comprehended the emptiness realm, Chen Zhao started absorbing the earth essence. At that moment, Chen Zhao felt that his blood was boiling. Chen Zhao forcefully suppressed the burning sensation. Meanwhile, the internal alchemy in his lower dantian started solidifying and turning gold. Furthermore, there was a pattern of an immortal bird on the inner core. Chen Zhao felt the changes in his body. At that moment, all the weight disappeared. The emptiness realm was finally complete. The heavenly patterns in the small world seemed to have been ignited. All the patterns were covered in red flames. The small world was around 50 meters in diameter and shaped like a hemisphere. At the moment it looked like a burning tree. Withdraw! Chen Zhao's heart jumped. The flames immediately disappeared and returned to his body. Chen Zhao's consciousness moved again. A ball of fire exploded in a certain spot in the small world. It felt so good to control the world. However, that was only within the small world. Chen Zhao couldn't do anything beyond that. His body lightened and he floated up. Chen Zhao could feel that there were more terrifying existences in the direction where the undying bird had appeared. But he didn't plan on going deeper. It was already so dangerous. If he went deeper, he would only die a worse death. So he decided to leave. Chen Zhao easily returned to the waterfall and followed the underground river back to the underground lake. Just then he had another idea. Since there were other sources of water in the underground lake, they were probably above ground. Could he go back to the surface from the water entrance? Soon, Chen Zhao found the water inlet. He followed it and swam upstream. The current was rapid, but it wasn't a threat to Chen Zhao. Finally, Chen Zhao felt the exit of the undercurrent. Chen Zhao pushed up and finally floated to the surface. But why did the surroundings feel so familiar? Chen Zhao looked left and right. Chapter 1191. Chen Zhao didn't even dream about it. After going around, he was back home. There was a tunnel that led deep underground in front of his house. Chen Zhao rose into the air, but he realized that he was still limited by height. When he was above 100 meters, the weight came again. It was like some force was trying to pull him back to the ground. Even though he understood the emptiness of the world, he still couldn't fly freely in the sky. It seemed that he still had a long way to go before he could truly fly in the sky and burrow underground. Chen Zhao was somewhat disappointed. Fei Lai went to the balcony of her bedroom and saw a figure flying in the darkness. She was too familiar with that figure. Chen Zhao, was that her man? Fei Lai was filled with shock. Chen Zhao finally noticed Fei Lai's gaze. He flew from the sky above the lake to the balcony. He hovered outside the balcony, holding a golden feather in his hand. Fei Lai, this is for you. Chen, this is? Phoenix's feather. Fei Lai's eyes were moist. She took the golden feather lovingly. Chen, you can fly? I just learned. Chen Zhao pulled Fei Lai's hand and carried her like a princess. Then he flew slowly above the lake. Chen, you're Superman, right? I'm willing to be your Superman. Just then, the morning glow rose from the distant sea. Fei Lai had never seen such a beautiful morning glow before. It was an enchanting scene. A beautiful scene that made people linger on and forget to leave. Flying was a very special experience. Chen Zhao had done something that humans could only dream of. He could fly into the sky without using any tools. Although he couldn't completely break free from gravity. However, Chen Zhao believed that one day, he would definitely be able to do that. He could also do it. He could break through the speed that he couldn't on the ground by flying. He could even reach the sound barrier. But flying in the sky was even more tiring. It was very tiring. In the past, without the small world, Chen Zhao might not even be able to fly for 10 minutes with his magic power. But now, even with the small world, he still couldn't fly for long. 1 hour was the most he could do. To put it simply, flying consumed much more magic power than Chen Zhao's magic recovery. With the small world, Chen Zhao's magic source had expanded more than 10 times. But this didn't mean that he had endless magic power. Chen Zhao put Fei Lai on the stone ball in the middle of the lake. Chen Zhao's magic power started seeping into the stone ball. The stone ball was Old Turtle's inner elixir. In principle, Chen Zhao could absorb Old Turtle's internal elixir too. But the level difference between Chen Zhao and Old Turtle was too big. In fact, Mirror Lake itself was a small world. Old Turtle's inner elixir had created a small world of its own. Just thinking about the area of this small world of more than 10 square kilometers, one could imagine how huge this small world was. Chen Zhao and Old Turtle's relationship aside, in terms of ability alone, he couldn't take Old Turtle's internal alchemy and turn it into his own small world. The difference between Chen Zhao's little world and Old Turtle's was like comparing a watermelon to a sesame seed. Plus, this was only 1/10,000th of Old Turtle's power. After breakfast, Chen Zhao entered the river map. Hey, you're really fast. It should have only been less than a day outside, right? You've actually completed chaotic emptiness. Old Turtle looked at him in surprise. Old Turtle, this roast chicken is for you. Chen Zhao tossed a mortal bird's body before Old Turtle. Is this a phoenix in China? What kind of phoenix is this? If you meet a phoenix, and the phoenix is hostile to you, it can probably make you evaporate from the world with just a glance. This thing is at most a strange beast. Phoenix is a divine beast, a spirit of heaven and earth. There are 5 main types. Red is the phoenix, cyan is the luan, purple is the taowu, yellow is the taowu, and white is the swan. Old Turtle said, Phoenixes only live on the parasol tree and never land in the sky. Once they land, the seas will boil and the 9 hells will roll. Think about the difference between the phoenix you mentioned and this thing. Old Turtle lifted a mortal bird's body. But this thing has some phoenix blood. I don't need it. Mix it with rootless water and make soup for your wife. It'll nourish your wife and protect the fetus. The child will be very healthy in the future. Old Turtle, my bronze and stone swords were both destroyed when I fought this strange bird. Help me make a few more stone swords. I don't know how to refine weapons. What I can refine is the most ordinary molding, just like those stone swords from before. They are made by melting the stone at high temperatures. With your current strength, if you meet an opponent weaker than you won't be able to use it at all. However, if you meet an opponent of the same strength as you, the stone swords are basically useless. Then what should I do? If I don't have a suitable weapon, I'll always feel empty. Think of a way yourself. I'm not Doraemon. Chen Zhao was chased out of the river map by Old Turtle. After some thought, Chen Zhao decided to call West. Chen Zhao called West. West, you said that the association wanted to recruit an alchemist. Did you get any results? West was surprised that Chen Zhao would bring this up. President, not yet. Then do you have any intentions? For example, someone you like? A few. I sent invitations on behalf of the association, but I haven't heard back. Who are they? Chen Zhao asked. Holland's alchemist Punk, Japan's famous swordsmith Higashino Tenki, and South Africa's famous 5 Venoms Sex Elderwago. All 3 of them have very good alchemy skills. At the same time, in terms of personal integrity, they meet the requirements of our association, West said. Are there any other Japanese? Of course, West knew that the Chinese and the Japanese had a feud, so when he mentioned the Japanese swordsmith, Higashino Tenshi, he only mentioned him briefly. Chen Zhao also had this concern. Recruiting a Japanese might not be a pleasant experience. Does this Japanese specialize in forging swords? He's proficient in forging all kinds of weapons, and he's also good at making magical tools. Most of the weapons our members use now are made by Padalu and Jalag, and they're only good at mechanical weapons. They're very unfamiliar with magical weapons. For example, Gaia's weapons are custom-made. Not only are they expensive, but Gaia also took a long time to get used to their flaming greatsword. If this Japanese bladesmith is willing to join our association, we can have him custom-make a set of weapons and equipment for everyone. Chapter 1192. The Dutch alchemist Punk. He's best at making all kinds of magic potions. The South African voodoo master, Vago, is actually a witch doctor. He's the leader of his tribe. He treats people in his tribe and makes voodoo antidotes. He's also the one who rejected our invitation the most. From West's explanation, Chen Zhao roughly understood one thing. All 3 of them had their own specialties, but they weren't comprehensive enough. All 3 were things that the association needed. If there was someone who could be good at everything the 3 were good at, he'd be the perfect alchemist. But clearly, with the association's current fame and authority, it wasn't that attractive. What the association could do now was attract other spiritualists with benefits and benefits. Did they make any requests? Chen Zhao asked. Punk asked for unlimited research funds and we can't force him to work. Fuck, we're not looking for a grandfather to worship. We can't just cut off all ties with him. Chen Zhao disliked arrogant people the most. Perhaps this punk was very capable, but Chen Zhao wouldn't ask for help. West had come to beg Chen Zhao. What was the supernatural organization like then? They couldn't even deal with the evil spirit group in Maple Leaf community. The association was also in chaos internally, and there was also a big worm that Chen Zhao had already cut into pieces. But what was it like now? The people in the supernatural organization had built up their confidence and pride. Maybe they weren't perfect yet, but they could say no to anyone. The supernatural organization was willing to recruit more capable spiritualists. But they definitely wouldn't be begging humbly. The most direct manifestation was the difference in power. If another haunted community like Maple Leaf community appeared, 5 people in the association could deal with it alone. Or 3 or 4 people working together could deal with it. There wouldn't be a situation where a haunted community couldn't be dealt with in a few years. Moreover, their power was still growing. In the past, Jalanash was the strongest. Her pride couldn't match her power at all. But now Jalanash wasn't as proud as before. She knew that many people in the world were better and stronger than her. Even in the association, many people could defeat her. West could also bravely say no to the Anti-Terrorism Association and negotiate with them with a tough attitude. Where are the other 2? Chen Zhao asked. That Japanese man, Dongye Tianxi, he asked us to help him subdue a ghost king. What ghost king? Shall we go to Japan? No, that ghost king was sealed in his family's demon knife, and that demon knife was lost when he came to America. Apart from this, are there any other requirements? No, West said. Are there any clues about the whereabouts of the demon blade? In the past month, 4 people in the Los Angeles area have been injured by sharp weapons. One of them died, and according to the investigation, all the blood in the dead person's body was sucked dry. We suspect it has something to do with the sword. Regarding this matter, the association will continue to investigate. After all, even if this matter was not entrusted to us, it is still within the scope of our duties. Also, what is Dongye Tianxi's personality like? He's very similar to the Japanese I know, humble and proud. What about the last witch doctor Vago from Africa? Did he propose any conditions? Yes, but it's basically impossible for us to do it. What condition? Protect his tribe, and help them escape poverty and war. In that case, only the Japanese still has a chance, right? Actually, there's a list, but they're either too weak or have no chance at all. They've already pledged their loyalty to other forces. Make an appointment with the Japanese, Chen Zhao said. Okay. Chen Zhao wanted to see if the Japanese could get along with him. If they could, then he would recruit him. If not, then he would give up on the idea. Due to well-known reasons, the relationship between China and Japan had always been very complicated. Chen Zhao wanted a subordinate, not someone who would cause trouble for him. Therefore, Chen Zhao had to make sure that the Japanese did not have any conflicts of principle with him. If Dongye Tianxi was a pervert, Chen Zhao would probably kill him on the spot. Chen Zhao went to the headquarters of the association in the afternoon. When he arrived, he saw a few unfamiliar cars parked in the parking lot. When he entered the hall, he saw a few uninvited guests. Chen Zhao's expression changed instantly. It was not just anyone, but people from the Magic Palace. At the front were Rococo and Baisa. The other 3 were Arthur, and the other 2 guardian knights. To Chen Zhao's surprise, the last one was Bolton, a police officer from San Diego. It's you guys? Chen Zhao's expression darkened. He was ready to attack. Hi Mr. Chen, we meet again. Rococo smiled at Chen Zhao. Are you here to die? Chen Zhao asked with a dark expression. Mr. Chen, don't attack first. We're here to resolve the misunderstanding, Baisa said. I don't think there's any misunderstanding. You attacked me. President, I think there's indeed a misunderstanding between you two. West volunteered to be the peacemaker. They attacked me first. Mr. Chen, we're here to apologize to you, Baisa said. Baisa said, we know. We originally thought that Mr. Chen deliberately created the Thousand Faces demon spirit, so he created that massacre. Chen Zhao's expression was still dark. He stared coldly at the people before him. The truth proves that we were wrong. Misha had already learned from West the reason why Chen Zhao had massacred them back then. She could not accept Chen Zhao's bloody methods, but at least Chen Zhao was not the crazy and evil wizard she'd thought him to be. To be honest, Chen Zhao was not as angry as that day. His anger was a momentary impulse. Chen Zhao did not have any deep grudges against them. Chen Zhao did not want to kill them anymore. However, it was still impossible for him to resolve the conflict with them. Mr. Chen, no matter whether you forgive us or not, please accept our apologies. Also, we're here to cooperate with the supernatural organization. Cooperate with what? I don't think we have to. It's about Rupert, the demon spirit in her. Is there a problem? Chapter 1193. Chen Zhao didn't like Rupert, but that didn't mean he would give her to someone else. In particular, he disliked her even more. He'd even had some conflicts with them before. Why? Chen Zhao crossed his legs and sat on the main seat. Crossing his arms, he looked at the people in the magic palace. Mr. Chen, maybe you don't understand the severity of the situation, Bamiza said. There's a demon soul in Rupert's body. It's the demon Kansmosa. And then, haven't you heard of this name? The people in the magic palace were disappointed by Chen Zhao's calm reaction. They'd thought that Chen Zhao would be shocked and in disbelief. Just then, West whispered into Chen Zhao's ear. This name comes from a famous demon from the Middle Ages. A demon from the Middle Ages? Including the 20 years she'd been asleep, Rupert was only 27 or 28 years old. She'd only been sealed for 20 years. How did a demon from the Middle Ages appear? Chen Zhao thought that it was a demon that had only appeared recently. It said that Kansmosa was a subordinate of the King of Magic, Bamiza said. Not only did he have unparalleled magical power, but he also had an evil army. He once turned into a duke in the Roman Empire and used his power to recruit troops. Then he used his evil magic to transform the army into a demon army and challenged the Vatican. In the end, the Vatican destroyed the demon and sealed his body and soul separately. His subordinates have been hiding in the darkness, waiting for Kansmosa to wake up from the seal and lead the demon army again. Get to the point. Not long ago, we discovered that Sibylla is a believer of the demon doctrine. She's been plotting to resurrect Kansmosa. Chen Zhao looked at Rococo. I remember she's your daughter, right? That day in the underground parking lot, Chen Zhao had heard their conversation while hiding in the darkness. He also knew that Sibylla was Rococo's daughter. That's right. Don't you know what your daughter believes in? I can't help but suspect that you're the one who guided her to believe in the demon doctrine. She is indeed my daughter, but she has never lived with me before. And the person who discovered her faith was also me. Luo Coco said indifferently. Mr. Chen, 20 years ago, Sibylla found the place where Kong Mosa's soul was sealed. Then, she deceived the other witches and released Kong Mosa's soul. However, she overestimated the strength of Kong Mosa's soul. After being sealed for 1,000 years, Kong Mosa was extremely weak, and he was only in his soul form. In the end, he was defeated by the other witches. Sibylla then proposed to seal Kong Mosa's soul. Using the magic she learned from the East, she divided Kong Mosa's soul into 3 parts and sealed them in Rupert and her 2 students. Then what do you want Rupert to do? Destroy 1/3 of Kong Mosa's soul. As long as 1/3 of Kong Mosa's soul is destroyed, even if Kong Mosa is resurrected in the future, he will still be an incomplete soul. At that time, the threat will be far less than a fully resurrected Kong Mosa, and we will have more confidence in destroying him. Speak the truth, Chen Zhao said, looking at the people of the magic palace. Mr. Chen, in order to achieve righteousness, sacrifice is needed. Rupert's mother was one of the witches who fought with Kong Mosa's soul. She was also tricked by Sibylla, so she accepted Sibylla's suggestion and sealed 1/3 of the demon's soul in her daughter's body. She also needs to take responsibility for her mistakes, Bisa said. Oh, are you done? Mr. Chen, what's your answer? I won't keep you for dinner, Chen Zhao said. You can leave now. Mr. Chen, Do you know what you're saying? I do. A group of enemies came to my house and asked for people. Can I understand that? Chen Zhao's eyes were like torches. He looked coldly at the people of the magic palace and turned to West. West, my temper seems to be much better. I'm surprised I didn't attack them on the spot. Yes, President, your temper is indeed much better. To be honest, West would not be surprised if Chen Zhao attacked. But if some random person comes here again, don't be polite, Chen Zhao said. But don't be so polite. Mr. Chen, you're making a very stupid decision. This is my territory. Old woman, you'd better take care of yourself. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to control my temper. Since they weren't friends, Chen Zhao did not need to pretend to be polite. Let's go. Bisa left with a pale face. She and Rococo had already lowered their statuses and came to negotiate with him with good intentions. But Chen Zhao had rejected them. It was easy to imagine how Bisa felt. Guild leader, will our Sin Magic Temple really be fine? West asked worriedly. What? You think we're weaker than them? The Magic Palace is the headquarters of thousands of witches in Europe. Those two are great witches. What great witches? That's a respectful title for them. You can also call them leader witches. Then they're the strongest witches in Europe, right? In terms of individual power, they're indeed the strongest. I don't think they're that strong, Chen Zhao said disapprovingly. Chen Zhao did not deny that they were strong, but they'd lost to him in the end, so he could not think highly of them. If the strongest witches in Europe were only at this level, then Chen Zhao would be really disappointed. But they represent the Magic Palace. It's the largest magic organization in the world. So what if they're strong? We're separated by the Atlantic Ocean. Do you think they can call thousands of witches to come here and settle the score with us? Chen Zhao looked at the corner. Rupert, come out. Rupert pursed her lips and walked out from the corner. Did you hear what they said just now? Yes. Tell me why you're with Sibylla. Sibylla said that she has a way to pull the demon's soul out of my body without harming me. What about now? Clearly Sibylla lied to me. In fact, I'd sensed it before. Then why are you with them? Chapter 1194. Then your original goal probably wasn't to cooperate with Sibylla, right? Rupert was playing with her fingers. Chen Zhao could tell that Rupert didn't want to talk. Chen Zhao didn't force her either. Whatever. You can tell me whenever you want. Sibylla controls Kong Mosa's demon army, Rupert said. Chen Zhao froze. If that's the case, why does she want to resurrect Kong Mosa? Isn't it better for her to control Kong Mosa's demon army? She's only a temporary commander. There are also people who oppose her in the army. They think that she's only a human. If she wants to continue controlling the army, she has to work hard for Kong Mosa's resurrection. If she continues to summon the army for her own sake, the army will tear her apart. How many demons are there in the army? Thousands of converted demons and 4 demon commanders, Rupert said. How do you know so much? Rupert pointed at her head. He told me. Are you sure he's telling the truth? After all, he's sealed in my body. You can say that my soul and his have merged into one. He can't lie to me. So if Sibylla wants to resurrect Kong Mosa, she'll pull your soul out too? She said that she has a way to separate me from the demon's soul. Does she really have a way? Chen Zhao asked. I've never thought about that, Rupert said. I have my own plan. What plan? 1/3 of the demon's soul is sealed in me, Mahage and Fei Sha's bodies. It can be said that the 3 of us have some kind of connection. But if the 2 of them die, then the demon's soul and their bodies will also be destroyed. At that time, Kong Mosa's power will be greatly weakened, and he will no longer be able to affect me. Instead, I can fuse with his soul, and then completely turn it into my power. Rupert looked young, but her ambition was no less than any adult's. Chen, help me get rid of Mahage and Fei Sha. If it's you, you can definitely do it. Rupert looked at Chen Zhao expectantly. Chen Zhao glanced at Rupert indifferently, but he sneered inside. The words that this little girl had just spoken were probably far from her true feelings. He reckoned that this lass had other plans in her heart that she had yet to reveal. If he took the bait so easily, he would probably fall into her trap in the end. We'll see. I don't even know where they're hiding now. Before the 15th of this month, Sibylla will show up and attack you. Why? To snatch me back. Rupert said. Because the seal on Kong Mosa's body is about to lose its effect. This is their last chance. If they can't return Kong Mosa's soul to his body before the seal is undone, then his body will go out of control. So as long as we hide you and wait until the 15th, we'll win? Do you think it's that simple? Rupert mocked. Faith, Mahage, and I can sense each other's souls. It doesn't matter where you hide me. Sibylla knows where Kong Mosa's body is sealed? Of course, 1,000 years have passed in the sealed land. There are no secrets that can be hidden for 1,000 years without being discovered, not to mention a group of demons who are scheming to uncover secrets. Moreover, they have already obtained Kong Mosa's body. Are you saying that the seal on Kong Mosa's body has been undone? No, it's just a seal. Sibylla and the commander of the demon army got Kong Mosa's body, but they didn't undo the seal. Kong Mosa's body doesn't have a soul. Once the seal is undone, he'll go out of control. That's why they had to release his soul at the last moment, so that it could return to his body. Then how did the demon army and Kong Mosa's body avoid people's attention? Chen Zhao asked curiously. If they want to take you away, then they'll have to invade our association. But they'll have to do it with great fanfare. It'll be very troublesome for 1,000 demons to get here, right? By the way, how do they get through customs? How do they buy tickets? Rupert rolled her eyes. The demon army was transformed. They were originally humans, so they have human faces. Apart from their faith, they're pretty much the same as humans. Ever since they woke up, they've been hibernating in human society. March 15th, right? If you kill Mahage and Fei Sha before that, things will be much simpler. They'll give up on the attack. Rupert still hadn't given up on persuading Chen Zhao. Didn't you say that you can sense their location? Tell me where they are now, Rupert said helplessly. Rupert said helplessly. You know what I'm saying to you now will be heard by the demon soul. And the demon soul will not allow the other parts of its soul to be destroyed. So, you can't tell me where they are now. Even if I want to help you kill them, it's useless. But, I'm looking forward to the arrival of the demon army. Chen, you can't defeat a demon army. Even with the supernatural organization, you have no chance of winning. Don't underestimate anyone here, Chen Zhao said calmly. Right, West? Ha! West's laugh was very forced. This might be the most dangerous battle that Chen Zhao and the supernatural organization had ever experienced. However, Chen Zhao hoped that this battle could be a reference to test his strength. But before that, Chen Zhao still had to create his weapon. If the human world couldn't provide the weapon he needed, Chen Zhao could only go to hell. Relatively speaking, Chen Zhao could indeed get a suitable weapon from Great Lord Beelzebub Zophi, or the handsome young man. But this would be very utilitarian. In the past, Chen Zhao and Beelzebub Zophi's relationship was an exchange of benefits. But after interacting for a long time, it was inevitable that their hearts would be moved. The handsome young man had been moved from the beginning. Thus, Chen Zhao wasn't willing to involve too many benefits. If he needed to find the two of them, their relationship would become complicated and not so pure. Perhaps the demons Chen Zhao knew in hell would have some sort of goal. Chapter 1195. President, you've been rubbing your palms the entire way. I have to suspect that you're actually planning to kill that Japanese. West looked at Chen Zhao's spirited expression. He was very doubtful that he'd managed to invite Dongye Tianqi. Maybe it wasn't a good decision. Should I call him now and make an appointment with Dongye Tianqi another day? Chen Zhao's idea was simple. Since it was a date, he'd talk. But if he heard anything unpleasant, he'd beat him up so badly that even his mother wouldn't recognize him. Dongye Tianqi lived in an apartment building. When Chen Zhao and West arrived at Dongye Tianqi's house, they realized that Dongye Tianqi wasn't alone. His wife and daughter were there too. The house was decorated like the families in the Japanese movies Chen Zhao had seen. There was even a painting with the word endure on the wall. Dongye Tianqi wasn't tall, and he was bald. Because he was at home, he wore a kimono. Standing beside Dongye Tianqi was his wife, Riko Oikawa. Hello, Mr. West. This is the president of our association, Chen. Hello, Chen-san, are you from China? Yes. Chen Zhao didn't know Japanese. Chen Zhao didn't speak Japanese, but he knew that san was a more formal form of address in Japanese. At the same time, it also represented intimacy. Dongye Tianqi brought Chen Zhao and West to the coffee table in the study. Riko Okinawa poured tea for them thoughtfully. It could be seen that Riko Daichi was a very virtuous woman, and she was also relatively traditional. Okinawa, you can leave first. Chen-san, this is Longjing tea from Hangzhou, China. Please have a taste. Chen Zhao took a sip and said indifferently, Mr. Dongye, have you heard of a cow chewing on a peony? Chen-san, you seem to be very hostile toward me. Since you know that I'm Chinese, then you should also know that not every Chinese like Japanese, especially some of the Japanese political concepts that are difficult to agree with. Chen-san, I understand what you mean. I can't change the thoughts of the people or the government. I can only represent myself and apologize for what the Japanese did in the past. What Chen Zhao wanted was an attitude. However, Dongye Tianqi's second sentence made Chen Zhao unhappy. Does Chen Sang use a sword? Yes, how did you know? You have sword chi on you. But I think China's double-edged sword has a big gap with the Japanese katana in terms of practicality and durability, said Higashino Tengsi. If Chen-san is interested in trying the Japanese katana, he will like the feeling of it. Chen Zhao did not know why Dongye Tianqi was telling him this. But as a Chinese, he had to protect his country first. Then what makes Mr. Higashino say that? Because I'm an expert. In terms of the shape and physical lines of the sword, the Japanese sword is superior to China's double-edged sword. Since you're an expert, why are you arguing with a non-expert? Chen Zhao really wanted to retort with his actions, but he wasn't an expert. I'm also saying this based on my professionalism. If there's a possibility of cooperation in the future, I won't make inferior weapons. No matter what, Chen Zhao was very unhappy. You said Japanese swords are durable, right? That's right. Good. Do you have your work at home? Chen Zhao asked. Of course. Can I take a look? Of course. Dongye Tianqi was clearly very confident in the weapons he'd made. He took out a Japanese sword from the cabinet on the bookshelf. The scabbard of this Japanese sword was very exquisite. It was wrapped in a wooden scabbard made of python skin, and the handle was wrapped in white silk. There was also a ribbon left over. Chen-sang, please take a look. Chen Zhao gently pulled out the scabbard. The blade hummed softly. Chen Zhao did not know if the sword was good or bad, but his intuition told him that it was indeed very sharp. Mr. Higashino, can I try the durability you mentioned? Of course. Chen-sang, go ahead. Chen Zhao's right hand was already filled with magic. His left hand held the handle. Next, Chen Zhao exerted force. Crack! The blade of the Japanese katana was broken. With a smile, Chen Zhao placed the broken katana on the coffee table. Sorry, I accidentally used too much force. Dongye Tianqi's expression immediately turned livid. His face was bright red. But I don't think Japanese swords are that durable. Of course, it's also possible that Mr. Higashino's sword isn't as good as you think. Chen Zhao directly questioned Dongye Tianqi's skills. For a swordsmith, this was the greatest humiliation. Sorry, Chen-sang, I think you've misunderstood. This sword is indeed not of high quality. Please wait a moment. The Japanese man was very proud. He would not allow others to question his skills. This was something he'd persisted in for decades. He could not let anyone question him. Dongye Tianqi stood up again and hurried out of the study. A few minutes later, Dongye Tianqi returned with a Japanese sword in both hands. I forged this sword when I was 45 years old. It's called Skyfall. Please take a look, Mr. Chen. Chen Zhao took the Japanese katana called Skysword. Can I continue? Of course. This sword is Mr. Higashino's best skill? It's made from ordinary materials. It's not the best sword, but it does contain my best skill. Chen Zhao held the sword in his left hand. This time, he did not use it to bend it. Instead, he chopped at his right arm. Ah! Dongye Tianqi was shocked and wanted to stop him. But it was too late. Chen Zhao had already chopped down. Clang! A corner of the blade was missing, but Chen Zhao's arm was undamaged. I'm sorry, Mr. Higashino. It seems that you're not the person our association needs. Chen Zhao stood up. A weapon that can easily break even myself can't satisfy my needs. Chen Zhao's words were rather polite, but he had actually insulted Dongye Tianqi to the core. Chen Zhao was still very happy. He'd insulted the Japanese man. He'd dealt a heavy blow to Dong Tianqi's most proud profession. West could only stand up and look at Chen Zhao helplessly. His gaze seemed to be saying, "Why do you have to do this?" From beginning to end, West hadn't said anything. He could tell that Chen Zhao's stubbornness had surfaced. He also blamed Dong Tianqi for making things difficult for Chen Zhao. If he hadn't said that Chinese swords were inferior to Japanese swords, things wouldn't have gotten so unpleasant. "Wait, Chen-san. Is there anything else? Chen-san, I hope you can give me a chance. I'll definitely make a weapon that satisfies your needs." "Sorry, I don't need a Japanese sword. I want a double-edged sword from China." "Chen-san, what's wrong with a Japanese sword? Can you make a Japanese sword that won't bend? Can't China swords be bent by Chen-san?" Chapter 1196. Can I see the weapon that Chen-san used before? Chen Zhao took out the broken bronze sword directly. Dong Tianqi wasn't an ordinary blacksmith. He didn't forge ordinary weapons either, so he wasn't surprised by Chen Zhao's ability to take things out of thin air. "Chen-san, since this weapon is broken, it doesn't prove that it's better than a Japanese sword. It's broken because it's been through too many battles. West can prove how many enemies I've defeated with this sword." West glanced at Chen Zhao. He didn't know what was so special about the bronze sword, but he knew that Chen Zhao definitely didn't rely on the bronze sword to defeat so many enemies. It was all because of Chen Zhao's personal strength. Even without the bronze sword, Chen Zhao could still use another method to defeat his previous enemies. It's impossible for any weapon to be indestructible forever. Can Mr. Higashino guarantee that the blade you forged will never break? In the past, Dong Tianqi could confidently say that his sword was invincible and unbreakable. But after being defeated twice by Chen Zhao, Dong Tianqi really didn't have the courage to say that. Nevertheless, there were indeed densely packed marks on the broken bronze sword. Who knew how many dangerous battles Chen Zhao had been through? "This looks like an ancient sword." "That's right. This is an ancient sword that has been passed down since the Warring States period. It is my family's treasured sword, and it has experienced countless battles. Mr. Higashino, you can think about it. Over 2,000 years, it has experienced tens of thousands of battles, and it was only recently damaged. Do you think the weapon you forged would be more durable than this bronze sword?" Dong Tianqi sucked in a breath of cold air. He had really believed it. If it was really as Chen Zhao said, then the craftsmanship of the bronze sword had already surpassed his. Moreover, it was a sword made more than 2,000 years ago. "Chen-san, I take back my words and apologize to you." Dong Tianqi lowered his head and knelt on the ground apologizing. Dong Tianqi was a straightforward person, but Chen Zhao wasn't ashamed of his bragging at all. Winning this battle was something to be proud of. "Chen-san, I can't make a weapon of the same craftsmanship. I'm sorry." At this moment, Higashino Tengsi was also very depressed. Initially, he wanted to use his skills to prove that Japanese swords were better than Chinese swords. In the end, Chen Zhao slapped them in the face. Moreover, they were slapped in the face by the ancient people from 2,000 years ago. "Then come and work for me. While you work for me, you can also train your skills. One day, you will be able to forge a weapon suitable for me." He had no choice. He needed weapons now. Hitting people with fists and slashing people with swords were two completely different combat experiences. What was a weapon? It was an extension of the body. The ancients had a proverb: an inch longer, an inch stronger, and an inch shorter, an inch more dangerous. Weapons gave people a sense of security, especially on the battlefield. If Chen Zhao didn't have a weapon when fighting a powerful enemy, but the enemy had a weapon, the result would be the same. Facing the opponent's attack, Chen Zhao's first reaction was to dodge, regardless of whether it could hurt him. If Chen Zhao had a weapon, he would be much more confident. Because ever since Chen Zhao learned how to fight, the bronze sword had been accompanying him. Chen Zhao needed a weapon not only to increase his combat power, but also to increase his confidence and courage. Especially since there was a huge battle waiting for him in the near future. Even if he had to use a crappy gun to survive, Chen Zhao had to bring Higashino Tengsi with him first. He had to deal with the upcoming battle first. As long as the Japanese didn't have a direct conflict with their bottom line, Chen Zhao could still accept it. After all, Higashino Tengsi had apologized for their past history and attitude at the beginning of their conversation. This was Chen Zhao's bottom line in the subsequent disputes. It was a conflict of ideals. Chen Zhao could accept this kind of conflict. It was like how the Chinese said that China's cooking was the best in the world, but the French didn't accept it. This kind of ideal was harmless. Which country's citizens didn't have a few things to be proud of? There was no need to go to the extent of fighting to the death with such a conflict of ideals. If you said that Japanese swords were awesome, Chen Zhao would slap you in the face. This kind of conflict wouldn't hurt the other country's people, and there would never be an end to it. Today, Chen Zhao had proven that China's swords were awesome, but it might not be the end. Other than Higashino Tengsi's stubbornness in his profession, he was easy to get along with. His family looked like a normal Japanese family. His wife, Riko Odawara, was also full of the virtuousness of Japanese women. To be honest, when Chen Zhao was in university, he'd wanted to find a Japanese woman to spend the rest of his life with. At that time, there was a saying on the internet: Japanese women were the most virtuous and gentle women in the world. At that time, Chen Zhao was also affected by this theory. But then he met his first love. Chen-san, I'm sorry, but I still have the same request. As long as you can help me find the demon sword passed down in my family and subdue the Ghost King, I'll accept your invitation. Okay, Chen Zhao said. I'll do my best to help you find the demon sword. Mr. Higashino, do you have any clues? West asked. Because the Ghost King is sealed in the demon sword, it has the ability to confuse people. The Ghost King's demonic aura will also spread from the sword to the user, causing the user to be filled with demonic aura. At the same time, the user will show signs of demonization. Other than that, if the demon sword kills the 9 couples, the seal on the Ghost King will be completely undone. By then, the user will completely become a demon and become the host of the Ghost King. Are there any more clues? Oh, the user of the demon sword will become disgusted. He won't go out during the day, and will only come out at night. Since the user of the demon sword will be controlled, isn't it easy to unseal the seal? It's not complete control. Unless the user is a violent and bloodthirsty person, there's still a basic moral bottom line. The demon sword will keep bewitching the user. The first to be killed will most likely be the person who has a grudge against the user. West's heart jumped. So the first victim might be related to the user of the demon sword? It's very likely. Mr. Higashino, look at these photos. Chapter 1197. Hi Chen. An unfamiliar number called Chen Zhao, but the voice was familiar. It was the female pirate, Gurette. Gurette, what's up? I remember you told me that Nanchi Island won't surface until mid-March, right? I'm not asking you to leave now. The news about Nanchi Island has been leaked. I know that a few forces have entered the island's waters. Who are they? Pirates and mercenaries. Are you worried that someone will get there first? No, I'm not worried. I just feel that the news is very strange, Gurette said. It seems like someone is spreading the news on purpose. Anyway, it's not me. You're not suspecting me of spreading the news, are you? Of course I don't believe it's you. On one hand, it was because of Chen Zhao's credibility. On the other hand, Chen Zhao had no motive to leak the news. Didn't you say that there's a naval fleet patrolling that area? Can those pirates and mercenaries get close to that area? In Chen Zhao and Gurette's plan, they had chosen to set off after mid-March to avoid the naval fleet's patrols. Gurette was an experienced pirate. If she had to do this, the other pirates and mercenaries would probably have to do the same too. Going against a naval fleet really wouldn't end well. On the 3rd day after you left Hawaii, the naval fleet entered Nanchi Island's waters again in an attempt to salvage the gold, but they were completely wiped out. Now there's no naval fleet on Nanchi Island. That area is closed to navigation. Chen Zhao didn't expect such a change. Without the naval fleet, it was much easier for them to move around. However, Chen Zhao had to be more cautious. The annihilation of the naval fleet proved how dangerous that area was. No matter what, the final deciding factor was his own strength. In the past 2 days, Chen Zhao had been consolidating his cultivation. He didn't know how others were doing, But he could feel that ever since he'd comprehended worldly emptiness, his body seemed to have improved in some way. Why did humans pursue evolution? Because it felt good. That was the most fundamental reason. In the past, all living things in the world relied on the natural environment to evolve. However, since humans completed their evolution in a short period of 3 million years and completely dominated the entire Earth, humans stopped evolving. This was because the natural environment could no longer threaten humans. At least in most cases, the natural environment no longer threatened the entire human race. Therefore, the ancients created a cultivation system, or sought a breakthrough from other more advanced species. For example, he could borrow the magic of demons or the power of God. Their ultimate goal was to evolve, whether it was to defeat nature, to defeat enemies, or to defeat their own kind. The ultimate goal of human evolution was to feel good. Why the hell would he evolve if he wasn't happy? Chen, where did you get such a big bird? Fei Lai watched as Chen Zhao set up a huge pot in the yard. It had a diameter of 2 meters and was filled with water from the previous rain. Fei Lai was already used to Chen Zhao bringing back strange creatures to eat from time to time. However, this big wok could only fit one piece of meat. Although the undying bird wasn't a super large creature, it was still nearly 20 meters long, almost as long as a small passenger plane. Phoenix, Chen Zhao said, glancing at Fei Lai. Hearing that, Fei Lai's pregnancy was almost affected. Are you serious? Yes, that night I went to hunt the undying bird. At this moment a bus stopped. The people from the supernatural organization alighted from the bus, including the guard Adus. They were no longer unfamiliar with Chen Zhao's home. A few young girls even brought swimsuits and planned to play in the water. Thus it was more casual. Wes came over to greet Chen Zhao and Fei Lai. President, what creature is this? Undying bird this time. I called you guys over to eat together. Wes was even more speechless. Phoenix, can't you use a slightly more serious tone to say this? Oh, where's Gaia? I've already informed her, West asked. Gaia will come later. She's still on set. President, are there any feathers left? Yes. The feathers of the undying bird are very high-level magic materials. Oh, I'll organize them. If you need them in the future, just ask me. Were there any traces of the undying bird in the past? The last time it appeared was 100 years ago, 1914, in the Eiffel volcanic area. 1914? That's a special time, Chen Zhao said meaningfully. Yes, the First World War. West nodded. That's why the undying bird is also known as the messenger of disaster. Wait, Chen Zhao said, confused. In the West, the undying bird is called the divine bird. It can bring happiness and hope. The undying bird has different legends and images in Europe, West said. Most of them are vicious beasts that bring disaster and fire. Just then Lit Grove and Bona arrived too. Both of them were newbies in the supernatural world. When they heard that Chen Zhao was treating them to the undying bird's meat, their eyes almost popped out. Chen Zhao had cut off the thigh. It was only 1/5 of the undying bird's thigh, but it weighed 3 tons. Dad, I want to eat. Jerlin could already smell the meat. She pointed at the pot and drooled. The other pets were the same. They didn't bother and just surrounded the pot drooling. Wait for your Auntie Gaia to come. Not now. This was a gathering hosted by Chen Zhao. It was basic etiquette to wait for all the guests to arrive. But Jerlin wants to eat. Does your Auntie Gaia treat you well? Jerlin looked conflicted. Then she nodded. Okay. So if you eat, does everyone else have to eat too? What if Auntie Gaia comes and there's nothing to eat? Okay. Chen Zhao and Fei Lai loved little Jerlin, but they couldn't just ask for it. Luckily, Gaia didn't make Jerlin wait for long. When Gaia's car stopped in front of Chen Zhao's house, Jerlin welcomed Gaia with unprecedented enthusiasm. Auntie Gaia. Jerlin pounced at Gaia. Gaia was really flattered. She looked at little Jerlin in disbelief and reached out to pick her up. Jerlin, do you miss Auntie Gaia? Fei Lai covered her mouth and laughed. She's just greedy. Chen won't let her eat if you don't come. Chapter 1198. To be honest, the people in the association all liked the atmosphere of gatherings. Chen Zhao provided good food, and they could talk freely. Gaia, how's the filming going? It's going well. We've already completed the initial stage. Stephen had been working hard for 2 months, but he'd only completed the initial stage. A real high-quality film couldn't be completed in 3 or 4 months. It wasn't that there weren't high-quality films in 3 or 4 months, but they definitely weren't commercial films. No commercial film could be completed in 3 or 4 months. Releasing it at the end of the year was already the most ideal speed. Little Jerlin's mouth was covered in grease. She grabbed a piece of meat and stuffed it into her mouth. Her 2 small front teeth did most of the chewing. Creatures with abundant magic usually had better meat. Magic could improve the quality of meat. At the same time, it could bring some benefits to the human body. Moreover, the remaining magic in the meat would amplify the comfort of the taste. Everyone enjoyed the meal to their heart's content. Even the soup base was packed for everyone to take back. Ritter Grove was the first to leave. He had to rush for the night shift. The next day, Chen Zhao and Wes went to a restaurant. Not long ago, someone had died here. It was the restaurant manager. He'd been attacked on his way home from the night shift. All the blood in his body had been sucked dry. The police concluded that it was the work of a psychopath. There was nothing they could do about it. There were no clues at the scene. The fatal wound was a 10-centimeter deep cut on the neck. The manager's neck had almost been cut off. Chen Zhao and West each ordered a meal. A woman with big waves walked up to them with their food. "Here are your orders," Yizichen said. West took out $100 bill and handed it to Big Waves. Stunned, Big Waves looked at West. "Sir, did you give the wrong bill?" Tipping was a popular culture in America, but usually waiters in restaurants like this would be given $5 or $10. Very few people would give large bills as tips. Big Waves had met some customers before. They would also give large tips, but most of the time, they would make unreasonable requests. Big Waves couldn't help but wonder if the two thought she was that kind of woman. "What's your name?" West asked, looking up. Ella Morgan. "I want to ask you a few questions. If you can answer them, this $100 is yours." "My 3 measurements." If it was just her 3 measurements, Ella Morgan wouldn't mind sharing it with others. After all, a $100 tip is not a small amount. "No, I heard that your manager was killed a week ago. Is that right?" "Who are you?" Ella Morgan asked with a frown. "You don't need to know who we are. You just need to answer our questions. Are you policemen?" "Sort of. A few waves of police officers have already come." "What else do you want to ask? Does the manager have a grudge against anyone in the restaurant? Revenge?" "I don't think so." Ella Morgan shook her head. "But everyone in the restaurant hates him. That guy is a jerk." "How so?" "He often harassed me and the other waitresses. He's also very harsh to everyone. No one feels sad about his death. We're actually happy." Chen Zhao and Wes glanced at each other. According to Ella Morgan, all the employees in the restaurant were suspects, including Miss Ella Morgan. "Oh, did you notice that the other employees in the restaurant have some changes in their personalities? Or abnormal behavior? You suspect that the killer is from our restaurant? How is that possible? That day, we were all partying in the bar until dawn." "Are you sure?" "Of course. Didn't the police investigate a few days ago?" Ella Morgan looked at Chen Zhao and West. "Are you policemen or not?" "Whatever, we're fine." West stuffed the $100 into Ella Morgan's hand. The two of them didn't even take a bite before they got up to leave. "President, do you think the killer is an employee in the restaurant? Could it be that one of the employees found an excuse to leave for a while and then return to the crime scene after killing someone?" Chen Zhao asked. "We'll have to find out more from the police. I have a police friend. I'll call and ask." Chen Zhao called David. "David, I have a case to ask you." "What case is worth your attention?" "Someone named Voight was killed a week ago. The fatal wound was his neck. His blood was sucked dry. Could it be the work of a vampire?" David asked curiously. "No, it should be a Japanese katana," Chen Zhao said. "This guy is very dangerous. If you encounter him, don't be rash and don't let him get close." "Let me check. Which street is it?" "West Road Street." "Got it. I'll send you all the information I can on the case." "Okay, thank you." Chen Zhao soon received David's message. The West Road Street police station had taken over the case. There was also some interim evidence. This so-called interim evidence was not the kind that could be used in court. It was used to prove or push the case forward. For example, the police had obtained a recording from the bar. The recording proved Ella Morgan's words. They had indeed partied the whole night in the bar. No one had been there for more than 10 minutes. The bar was more than 25 kilometers away from the crime scene. So they could eliminate the possibility that it was a restaurant employee. 10 minutes was definitely not enough time to commit the crime. It's not a restaurant employee, Chen Zhao said. Could it be that the victim offended someone in his life? West suggested another possibility. From the restaurant employee and the police's evidence, it was clear that the victim was not a likable person. He was harsh to the employees in the restaurant, and even touched the waitresses. He did not like his neighbors either. Over the years, he had accumulated many grievances and grudges. Let's go to his house. Maybe we can find some clues. Just then, there was a commotion in the restaurant. Chen Zhao and West turned around and saw Ella Morgan throw a bouquet of roses at a bespectacled man. I said, "Stop harassing me. I don't like you. Even if all the men in the world die, I won't like you." Chapter 1199. The man in glasses didn't look well. It wasn't just because he'd been pushed down. It was also because of everyone's gazes. Ella Morgan crossed her arms and stood in front of the bespectacled man. That condescending gaze, that disgusted gaze, made the bespectacled man very uncomfortable. "You all deserve to die, you bitch." Bitch, under everyone's gaze. The man in glasses turned around and left with his head lowered. "Loser," Ella Morgan said in disdain, twitching her lips. Seeing Chen Zhao and West in the distance, Ella Morgan pointed at them and blew them a kiss from afar. The man in glasses was currently in a trance. He kept muttering, "Bitch, I killed that asterisk shoal who harassed you for you, but you still won't look me in the eye. You can go die too." Ella Morgan didn't know that the man in glasses was already holding a grudge against her. A short-haired female colleague came to Ella Morgan's side. "Ella, you better be careful. That man looks very uncomfortable." "What's there to be afraid of?" Ella Morgan said viciously. "If he dares to harass me again, I'll castrate him." "Where exactly did you meet him?" the colleague asked. Not only Ella Morgan, but this female colleague also looked down on the bespectacled man. A woman's first impression of a man was nothing more than his clothes and appearance. She couldn't possibly see through a person's heart at a glance. Any woman would find it hard to accept a man with messy hair and old-fashioned clothes. Women basically called this type of man a loser. "I think he's a porter from the airport. He came to our shop a month ago and asked for a cup of coffee for breakfast every day. I talked to him for a while, and then we didn't talk anymore. A few days ago, he wanted my phone number. Of course, I rejected him. I didn't expect him to come again today and want to go on a date with me. I really don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what he's doing." Ella Morgan glanced at the colleague beside her. "Gage, where do you plan to go after work?" "Let's go home," the female colleague Gatla said. "You're boring too. Why don't we go to the bar for a drink? There are many handsome guys in the bar we went to last time. Maybe we can get to know one or two." "No." Gage rejected Ella Morgan's suggestion. "I'd rather watch a soap opera at home." "Gage, can I stay at your house for a night? Why are you staying at my place?" "I was kicked out by the landlord." "All right," Gageland said. "Then shall we go back together after work?" "Okay, by the way, I ran out of beer at home. After work, I'll go to the supermarket to buy some beer." Gage looked like an ordinary girl, but Ella Morgan knew that she could hold her liquor very well. Moreover, Gatkala's interests and hobbies were very different from a normal girl. Ella Morgan had been to Gage's house. Gatkala had even set up a workshop in his own house. Every day when he returned home, he would go back and make all sorts of strange things. Sometimes, Ella Morgan even wondered if Gage was a man who had been reincarnated into the wrong body. After work, the two of them went straight to the supermarket and brought a few boxes of canned beer out. "Gage, are you a monster or not? Don't you think it's heavy?" Gage was 7 meters tall, but he didn't look very strong. However, he found it hard to carry a box of canned beer by himself. But Gage was carrying 6 boxes of beer with both hands. Ella Morgan always felt that there was a monster living in Gage's body. If you're willing to spend an hour working out every day instead of spending it on men, you can too. Is your so-called working out blacksmithing? Gage, wake up. That's not what a woman should do. Women should be like me, dressing themselves up beautifully every day. You have to think of yourself as a princess, not a rough man. Like you, going for an abortion every 6 months on average. Gakula rolled his eyes. Just like how Ella Morgan couldn't understand Gage's way of thinking, Gage also couldn't understand Ella Morgan's way of thinking. After putting the beer in the trunk, the two of them drove home. Don't get touchy, bitch. Gage couldn't stand Ella Morgan anymore. This woman was completely unscrupulous. She was already groping her in the car. You don't have any muscles, so why are you so much stronger than me? Gage rolled his eyes at Ella Morgan. A person's strength isn't all in their biceps. If you want big muscles, you should go watch bodybuilding competitions. When they arrived at Kira's house, Ella Morgan opened the door and went in. Ella, aren't you going to move the beer? Gage carried 7 boxes of beer in. You can move them without me, Ella Morgan said. Gage, the land around here is all yours, right? Yes. If a real estate developer takes a liking to this land, you'll be rich. Forget it. It's such a remote place. Even if I sell it, I won't be able to sell it for much. It's indeed a bit remote. But if you sell it, you'll definitely be able to open your own restaurant. By then I'll be your manager. If that day really comes, I'll definitely ask you to be the manager. Gage took a can of beer and went to the workshop in the back. Ella Morgan followed him to the back. The workshop was a small blacksmith shop. Gage skillfully opened the vent of the furnace. Air entered the furnace, and the flames inside immediately rose. On the other hand, Ella Morgan took down an exquisitely crafted longsword hanging on the wall. It's heavy. What's this thing used for? This is a restoration of a game item. This sword was reserved by a gamer. It's $1,200. Ella Morgan sucked in a breath of cold air. So expensive? Then aren't you rich? It's only $1,200. Is there a need to make such a big deal out of it? Also, I spent half a month making this sword. On average, I didn't even earn $100 a day. This is extra income on top of your job, Ella Morgan said. I really want to learn from you. Forget it. You can't even pick up that hammer. Gage, although I'm not as strong as you, you're underestimating me. That hammer looks like it's only about 20 kilograms. You can try it. Unconvinced, Ella Morgan went to the hammer. She held the handle and wanted to lift it, but she realized that the hammer was heavier than she thought. Chapter 1200. Gage lifted the hammer with one hand. Ella Morgan looked at Gage. Do you have the blood of a berserker? Gage froze for a moment, but then he rolled his eyes. You know berserkers too? I thought a woman like you wouldn't know the word. Please, I played games in school too. Do you really think I'm a brainless idiot with big boobs? This sword was a replica of a very famous weapon in the game Frostmourne. Ella Morgan held the sword and waved it around. The sword weighed more than 10 kilograms, but it was definitely lighter than the hammer. Ella Morgan was also in a playful mood. She let out a yelling sound. Gatella ignored Ella Morgan, holding a hammer and pounding on the workbench. After playing for a while, Ella Morgan came to the workbench. She was about to reach for a piece of metal in front of her. Gage stopped her. Use tweezers. This piece of metal just came out of the furnace. It's still very hot. Ella Morgan used the tweezers to pick up the piece of metal. It's so heavy. Is this steel? Why do I feel like it's heavier than gold? Alloy, Ella Morgan said calmly. Are you forging a weapon in the game too? No. Gage shook his head. The items in the game won't be this heavy. If this axe isn't a game item, what is it? Weapon. People buy this. Yes, Gage said calmly. Just then the doorbell rang. I'll go open the door, Ella Morgan said. It was mainly because the temperature in the workshop was a bit high. In just 10 minutes, she was already drenched in sweat. Ella Morgan opened the door and saw the bespectacled man standing at the door. Why are you here? The man with glasses raised his head and pushed up his glasses. A strange smile appeared on his face. I don't want to see you. Ella Morgan frowned and closed the door. But in the next moment, the door was suddenly pierced. Ella Morgan was startled when the sharp blade was thrust into her chest. Then the blade moved up, and the door and connected wall were cut open. Ah! Ella Morgan jumped in fright and screamed. When Gatkala heard the cry, he ran out with his hammer. Seeing the door that was cut open, Gatkala could not help but frown. She had never seen anyone who dared to cause trouble at her place. Gage, hurry up and call the police. This madman has a knife. Gatkala looked at the bespectacled man outside the door. The man's aura made him feel even more uncomfortable. This man is weird. She had already sensed that there was something strange about him. Now the ominous aura around him was even stronger. And the katana in his hand, it gave Gatkira the feeling of evil. Who are you? If you don't leave now, I won't be polite anymore. Gatkira scolded as she gripped her hammer tightly. At that moment, the bespectacled man gripped the katana's hilt with both hands, raised it above his head, and slashed at the half of the door. Hiss! Gage instinctively pushed Ella Morgan down and dodged at the same time. A saber cheese slashed across the walkway, leaving a shocking saber mark on the floor and ceiling. The wooden structure of the house was almost split open by the bespectacled man. Ella Morgan's face paled in fear. What kind of monster was this? Gatkala's expression became even more solemn. This guy was scarier than he had imagined. A sudden burst of strength burst out of Gatkala's right arm as he raised his hammer and smashed it at the bespectacled man. The bespectacled man immediately blocked the katana in front of his chest. The hammer smashed onto the katana, but the force did not diminish, sending the bespectacled man flying more than 10 meters away. Gatkala rushed out of the house and stood in front of the bespectacled man. At the same time, she grabbed the air with her right hand, and the hammer that had been sent flying returned to her palm. Ella Morgan looked at Gatkala in shock. Gatkala, you're Thor, right? The hammer in your hand is Thor's hammer, isn't it? Gatkala glanced at Ella Morgan from the corner of her eye. What are you doing out here? It's too dangerous out here. You'll protect me, right? Gatkala's expression darkened. She had rushed out of the house to protect Ella Morgan. In the end, Ella Morgan ran out herself. Although the bespectacled man was sent flying, he stood in front of Gatkala without a scratch on him. Ella, did you see that? Did you see my power? Are you still going to reject me now? The bespectacled man's face seemed a little twisted. His expression that was close to being abnormal was really hard for women to accept. I won't like you. Just give up, you pervert. Do you know what I've done for you? I killed that restaurant manager of yours for you. Do you know how much I've done for you? His words did not change Ella Morgan's mind. It only made her more afraid and more resistant to the bespectacled man. You pervert. If a woman wanted to like a man, the first thing she needed was a sense of security. Obviously, the bespectacled man did not give her any sense of security. In Ella Morgan's eyes, this man was a perverted murderer. What Ella Morgan said made the bespectacled man even more furious. The bespectacled man raised his sword and slashed at Ella Morgan from a distance of more than 10 meters. The aura of the blade cut through the air and attacked Ella Morgan with a tearing force. Gatkala slammed his hammer on the ground. The ground immediately formed a shockwave that spread in all directions. At the same time, it also dispersed the aura of the blade. The bespectacled man was also affected by the shockwave. He was sent flying and crashed into a tree behind him. Unfortunately, the devil's blade in his hand also flew out in the air and pierced through the bespectacled man's body. Gatkala heaved a sigh of relief. His luck was really good. Is he dead, Gatkala? I don't know, but he definitely can't fight anymore. Gatkala glanced at the bespectacled man whose body was pierced through. Just then, Gatkala noticed a black sports car parked not far from his house. Honestly, he did not believe that the car belonged to the bespectacled man. If the bespectacled man could drive that car, he would not be called a loser by Ella Morgan. Whose car is that? Gatkala asked. Is it this guy's? No, I remember this pervert's car is a very old one. Just then the black sports car drove over. Ella Morgan realized that the two people in the car were the ones who came to her restaurant today. Miss, are you a berserker? Wes looked at Gatkala and asked curiously. Who are you? Gatkala's expression was still vigilant. We're the same kind of people as you. How about joining us? West asked. Not interested. This is my home. You better leave immediately. Chapter 12:01. When Chen Zhao and Wes were at the entrance of the restaurant, they'd already realized that there was something wrong with this guy. So when the bespectacled man tailed Ella Morgan and get Kira, they were also tailing the bespectacled man. They'd wanted to stop them, but Gatella had already charged out. Wes had discovered something special about Getchula. That was why they were watching from the side. Jinkira's strength was also at the bottom of the pack in the association. He could probably only be compared to Jalanash in the past. If it was the current Jalanash, she could probably make Gatella kneel down in 1 minute. However, Wes felt that Gatella's bloodline was full of potential. Maybe she'd become the next Gaia. Even if she couldn't become the next Gaia, becoming the next Jalanash wouldn't be bad either. Right now, the guy's face was completely different from a human's. The muscles on his face were completely twisted, making him look like a monster. A pair of spiral horns grew out of his head. He had a green face, fangs, and a bloody mouth. Of course, he was also called a ghost in Japan. His body also became bigger and bigger, and his clothes were almost torn apart. Gatella looked at the guy who'd turned into a ghost. Right now, the guy's demonic aura was many times stronger than before. All of you must die, all of you, the guy said in a hoarse voice. Grabbing the hammer, Gatella stared at the guy with a serious expression. Chen Zhao immediately started the car and hid far away. What a joke. His car was worth almost $2 million. If he got involved in their battle, he'd lose $2 million in 1 round. Seeing Chen Zhao and West escape, Gatella sneered inwardly. He was indeed unreliable. During the battle earlier, he only dared to peep from a dark corner. Now that he saw this thing attack again, he escaped again. Just then, the green ghost charged over with a katana and slashed at Gatella. Gatella hurriedly raised his hammer to block. However, a corner of the hammer was cut off by the katana. Gatella, on the other hand, was under great pressure and took a dozen steps back. Chen Zhao sat on the back of the car and watched the fight between Gatella and the green ghost. Wes leaned against the back of the car. President, aren't we going to help? Don't worry, this girl won't die anytime soon. Also, didn't you see? After the Ghost King took the initiative, it didn't really use its full strength. It didn't kill on purpose. Jinkira barely blocked Green Ghoul's attack, but even Ella Morgan could see that Jinkira couldn't beat Green Ghoul. Ever since the bespectacled man transformed into a green ghost, both his strength and speed had greatly increased. Jinkira found it hard to even breathe after being struck by the green demon's attack. Is this all you've got? If that's all, then you should be more honest. That way you can suffer less pain. Green Ghost easily slashed out a terrifying attack with one hand. Gatella spat out another mouthful of blood to block the blow. Hey, do you need our help? Chen Zhao called. Gatella snorted coldly. Just mind your own business. If I die, you won't be able to escape death either. Jinkira calmed his mind and focused on dealing with the green demon. Gatella's heart skipped a beat as she suddenly realized a problem. This bespectacled man was definitely an ordinary person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become a loser in other people's eyes. The problem was definitely the katana in his hand. No one knew where he obtained this evil katana from, and how he obtained the power of the katana. However, he was clearly controlled by the katana too. If she could destroy the katana, perhaps it would end. Jinkira's skin started turning red. Her eyes were as red as a bull's. Even her hair grew longer. Fuck, she can't be a Super Saiyan, right? That's the Berserker bloodline. She's more like the Hulk than a Super Saiyan, West said. West said, the angrier a Berserker is, the more powerful they are. Furthermore, they can control and accumulate their anger. Then when they need to, they can release their anger. However, this method of releasing anger can increase their strength for a short period of time. But it can only last for a short time. After this state of rage ends, they will enter a period of weakness. An angry roar came from Gatkella's mouth as the hammer in his hand swung out fiercely. Green Ghoul's katana also slashed at the hammer. Clang! In an instant, the katana in Green Ghoul's hand was shattered. At the same time, Green Ghoul also suffered a frontal attack from the hammer. His huge body flew out. Whoosh whoosh, Jinkira panted heavily. In that instant, she had accumulated all her strength into one attack. After this attack, A sense of weakness hit her. The feeling of weakness was too strong. Kira could barely stand. She knelt on one knee. Kira, are you okay? Ella Morgan hurried over and helped Kira up. I'm fine. Kira's legs were weak. Just then, Chen Zhao and Wes came over again. Girl, what do you think about our previous suggestion? Chen Zhao asked. I won't join you, Kira said with determination. I see. Chen Zhao glanced at Green Ghoul in the distance. The battle isn't over yet. That demon sword needs to kill 9 men and 9 women to be unsealed. But you shattered it directly. Now that ghost has come out earlier. Kira looked in Green Ghoul's direction. Indeed, she saw Green Ghoul stand up from the ground. Just then, thick demonic aura was released from the broken pieces of the demon sword. Behind the green ghost, there was already a terrifying ghost face. Hee. Stupid human, it's all because of you that I'm free. Green Ghoul didn't have a weapon now, but his aura was 10 times stronger than before. Chen Zhao glanced at Green Ghoul and then said to Kira, if you're willing to join us, we'll help you deal with this guy. Do you know what you're saying? Can you deal with this thing? To be honest, Kira felt that Chen Zhao and Wes joining them was just 2 more victims. They couldn't defeat this thing at all. That kind of unprecedented evil was not something that humans could contend against. That's our problem. Do you agree? Chen Zhao asked. Kira's eyes flashed. Are you really going to deal with that monster? As long as you join us, we'll help you. What organization are you exactly? Supernatural organization. That useless organization? Chapter 1202. What Gatkala was thinking now was to let the 2 idiots deal with the green ghost while she pulled Ella Morgan and ran away. Just then Chen Zhao's phone rang. It was Gaia. Chun, where are you now? I'm in Mary Sector. It's a bit remote. Not far from me. Norma just called me and said that Pamela's going to complete her transformation tonight. Oh, what are you doing in Mary Sector? There's a ghost from Japan. Chen Zhao took a photo and sent it to Gaia. It looks really strong. Even though it's just a photo, I can feel the evil aura from it. It was mainly because the green ghost was too ugly, which was why everyone only cared about appearances. Give me the location and leave the ghost to me, Gaia said. Then you better hurry. I'm not sure if I can leave it until you get here. I'll come as fast as I can. Kira glanced at Chen Zhao. Do you have reinforcements? Yes. Kira realized that Chen Zhao and West weren't worried at all. He guessed that the reinforcements would be very strong, but would they make it in time? The green ghost didn't attack immediately. It also had to recover to its strongest state. The demonic aura emitted from the broken demonic blade had already been completely released. The green ghost was absorbing all the demonic aura. The more it absorbed, the stronger it became. Finally, it absorbed all the demonic aura. At this moment, Azure Ghost finally revealed his most terrifying aura and terrifying pressure. Green Demon looked at the crowd and grinned, revealing his bloody mouth. I haven't eaten anyone in a long time. It cackled. Ella Morgan was so scared that she was trembling. It looked at Ella Morgan and licked its lips. Don't worry. I won't eat you. Ella Morgan was even more terrified. She could imagine how the monster would torture her. Suddenly, Ella Morgan and Kira realized that there was a patch of red light in the night sky behind the green ghost. There seemed to be a ball of fire in the middle of the red light. Missile? The 2 girls were confused. Suddenly, the fireball lowered its altitude, and its flight trajectory seemed to be falling diagonally. Green Ghost also felt something approaching from behind, so he turned around to look. By then, the ball of fire had already landed on its body. Bang! This unexpected attack came too suddenly. The huge impact and scorching heat enveloped Green Ghost. Flame Blast also rushed towards Ella Morgan, but Gage pulled Ella Morgan behind him. Amidst the smoke and dust, 2 figures were fighting fiercely. Dragon. Ella Morgan's eyes widened as she stared at the figure that was gradually becoming clearer. Then they saw Green Ghost being thrown in front of them. One of Green Ghost's arms was torn off, and purplish-green blood flowed from the wound. He looked very miserable. Gaia stood there in her fire dragon form. When she first transformed into a fire dragon, her body was more than 5 meters long. Now she could reach 7 meters. She was also bigger than Obito's. Of course, she was different from Obito's. Obito's bloodline was purer than hers, so he grew faster. Those fiery red scales were filled with a dignified sense of oppression, causing Ella Morgan and Gekira to be filled with awe. Gekira looked at Chen Zhao and West. Were these their so-called reinforcements? No wonder they were so confident. With a fire dragon like this, was there any enemy they couldn't defeat? Just as Gekira's thoughts were running wild, Gaia attacked Green Ghost again. Green Ghost was quite strong, but it was still much weaker than Gaia. Moreover, ever since she could transform into a fire dragon, Gaia's appetite had become somewhat twisted. For example, she tore off Green Ghost's arm and swallowed it directly. Whether it was in terms of power, speed, or mana, Gaia was far superior to Azure Ghost. In terms of attributes, she crushed Green Ghost too. Green Ghost didn't plan to continue fighting. He wanted to escape, but the sudden arrival of the fire dragon made him unable to fight back. But Gaia clearly didn't plan to let him escape so easily. She spat out a mouthful of dragon breath at Green Ghost's back, and he was blown to the ground. Gaia pounced and killed him with one bite. Half of Green Ghost's body was gone. Gaia bit again, and Green Ghost didn't even have any scraps left. After swallowing Green Ghost, Gaia finally recovered her human form. Ella Morgan and Gekira stared at Gaia in shock. This big woman was transformed from the fire dragon? Are you full? Chen Zhao went up to greet Gaia. Not bad. It's rare to have an opponent like this. Gaia looked at Ella Morgan and Gekira. Who are they? That girl has the Berserker bloodline. Chen Zhao pointed at Gekira. You're Gekira, right? We helped you get rid of your enemies, so either you join us, or we'll let Gaia eat you. Gaia rolled her eyes. Is this how you threaten people? Little girl, don't be scared. I don't eat people, nor will I force you. If you're not willing, then forget it. I'm willing, Gekira said. Hello, Ms. Fire Dragon. I'm Gekira. Gekira looked at Gaia with admiration. What about me? Ella Morgan asked. I want to join you too. What abilities do you have? Seduce men. The group brought Gekira back to the headquarters. Ella Morgan had no home to go back to, so she followed them for the time being. Gekira had heard of the supernatural organization in the past, but she hadn't heard anything positive from her own kind. Weak and useless. That was what she'd heard. However, after coming to the organization, she realized that it was really rich. At least, the headquarters building before them was enough to prove how rich it was. The gatekeeper was a normal old man. It seemed that the supernatural organization wasn't strong after all. The only one who was powerful was probably Gaia. Gekira had been calculating the organization's strength in her mind. Just then, a group of evil spirits walked toward them. Gekira jumped, thinking that they were being attacked by evil spirits. However, when the evil spirits arrived before them, they didn't attack. President Lady Pamela's aura is becoming chaotic tonight, according to the records of the transformation process. On the night she completes the transformation, she will attract a large number of evil spirits to attack. Even we are affected now. As time goes by, this effect will become stronger. Then it won't just be us. I'm afraid that even evil spirits from outside will be attracted to Lady Pamela's aura. If you think you can't control it, then lock yourselves in the dungeon. Don't come out and cause trouble, Chen Zhao said calmly. If you don't have the self-control and still come out, I'll kill you first. The evil spirits didn't dare to be impudent before Chen Zhao. They knew that Chen Zhao would definitely do it. If anyone can maintain their self-control and do something tonight, you'll be in the second batch of transformation. West, you're in charge of recording the evil spirits participating in the battle tonight. Yes, President. Chapter 1203. Gage still didn't understand the situation. Ella Morgan didn't seem to either. Miss Gaia, do you have any plans tonight? Gage asked. No, Gage said. Go rest with your friends. To Gaia, Gage was still very weak. There was no need for her to get involved in this battle. Gage wasn't an idiot. Even Ella Morgan could tell that something was up. Gage saw that the people of the Lightning team were fully armed and prepared their guns. It seemed like a huge battle was about to happen. Oh, send Pamela to the front hall, Chen Zhao said. Let us watch her. Previously, Pamela had been in the evil spirit nest, guarded by an evil spirit. However, when the transformation was complete, Pamela would release her aura. At this moment, Pamela was like a piece of cheese covered in cream. Almost all the evil spirits in the city would be attracted to Pamela. Even the original evil spirit subordinates would be affected by Pamela. Therefore, it was very unsafe to let the evil spirits continue to protect Pamela. Of course, this was just a temptation. Any evil spirit with a bit of rationality could resist it. Chen Zhao didn't ask the evil spirit group of the association to join the battle. They could choose to imprison themselves and temporarily send them to the dungeon. Of course, they could also choose to join the battle and help the association defend against the evil spirits. However, if they lost control when the evil spirits attacked, Chen Zhao wouldn't be merciful to them. I can stay and help, Gage said. No, you won't be able to help. Then why can this old man do it? Gage pointed at Aduz and then at Lisa. If this girl can do it, why can't I? Aduz was fully armed at the moment. As the Chinese said, he was getting stronger with age. Aduz was now armed to the teeth. As the Chinese said, he was getting stronger with age. As for Reisa, she was still playing with her phone with her legs crossed. As for Lisa, she was still playing with her phone with her legs crossed. The relaxed people were relaxed, while the nervous people were nervous. For example, the people of the lightning team were equipping and inspecting their weapons. Another group of people were playing cards in a circle or sleeping on the sofa in the front hall. Pamela was sent to the front hall. Gage looked at her in the glass container. Pamela's body emitted an aura that made people's hearts tremble. What is she? She is a member of the society. In words that you can understand, she is evolving. She's not human. She's dead, an evil spirit. Padalu and Jalag were adjusting the equipment. Padalu had been working on his laptop the entire time. Suddenly Padalu stopped. President, dozens of evil spirits have entered the association's territory. In Jinkira's opinion, a few dozen wraiths were already a terrifying number. However, the people from the association continued to do what they were supposed to do. No one said anything. At this moment, the lights in the front hall began to flicker. Bang! Before Klaus could open fire, Aduz fired first. An electric arc shot out. An evil spirit was shot by Aduz in front of everyone. Jinkira's face was filled with astonishment. She wouldn't be surprised if anyone here could destroy that evil spirit. However, the person who had just made a move was actually the person who was least likely to make a move. Aduz, your reaction is really fast, Klaus said. I go to the Tower of Trials every day. I didn't learn anything else, but I learned how to shoot, Aduz said. Aduz might be the most relaxed in the association, but there was also a restless soul in his heart. He went to the Tower of Trials every day. As a regular person, there was no doubt about what would happen. Even Klaus and the other members of the Lightning team would most likely die in the Tower of Trials, let alone Aduz. By now, the wind was howling outside the glass window. Countless evil spirits were wandering outside. Evil spirits cried and howled outside. Occasionally, some would charge into the front hall. When Chen Zhao saw the evil spirits shatter the glass window of the headquarters, he immediately stood up. President, don't do it, Norma said. Everyone else had the same expression. If Chen Zhao attacked, they wouldn't be able to do anything. They all knew Chen Zhao's strongest ability, evil spirit killer. They didn't want Chen Zhao to ruin such a rare battle. What were dozens of evil spirits to the association? The few members of the Lightning team could deal with them together. Norma could deal with them alone. Gaia could deal with them alone. Jolene and Nash could deal with them alone too. A few dozen evil spirits were nothing to them. Mord walked out of the front hall. He'd always been a person with no sense of presence in the association. In the past, he'd been the main fighting force in the association, but after Chen Zhao came, his growth couldn't keep up with everyone else. Even his little brother Moer had grown faster than him in the past. Of course, it wasn't that Mord didn't work hard. He worked harder than anyone else. His strength wasn't just related to magic power. Compared to others, his magic power indeed didn't grow fast enough. But he was the messenger of nature. As long as he had the seeds of some magic plants, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. Mord casually tossed out a handful of unknown seeds. The seeds quickly stuck to the spirits of the surrounding evil spirits. Then, the seeds grew rapidly on the evil spirits' bodies, turning into watermelon-sized spores. Soon the spores exploded. The surrounding evil spirits were instantly crushed. Morad killed half of the evil spirits in one go. These were the seeds of magic spores. After receiving magic power, they could quickly attach to the surrounding creatures and grow. In an extremely short time, they completed a cycle of development and growth before exploding. Morad also had the ability to catalyze plants. He could control the growth speed of the magic spores, and when they exploded, of course, as the messenger of nature, seeds couldn't increase his strength. These seeds needed to be nurtured. Because Morad spent a lot of time nurturing the seeds, his cultivation time was naturally reduced. This was also the reason why the growth of his magic power was not fast. But aside from Chen Zhao, no one else could destroy so many evil spirits in one strike. Morad's growth is surprising, Gaia said, looking at the fierce battle outside. He should be able to reach the second level of the Tower of Trials, right? He's in Patya's team, West said. They've always been in the Tower of Trials together, so he hasn't been able to reach the second level. With that, West looked back at Patya. Patya blushed and lowered her head. It seemed that they had feelings for each other. Chapter 1204. Genkira was completely speechless. Because there were 20 to 30 people in the lobby, no one cared whether Morad won or lost. No one cared how dangerous it was outside. What everyone cared about was whether Morad and Patya had gotten on the bus. Suddenly, a huge shadow loomed over the association. Everyone saw that it was a group of evil spirits. It was made up of hundreds of evil spirits. This evil spirit group was filled with an unsettling aura. This aura was different from Gaia's dragon aura, nor was it like the evil of the green ghouls. Instead, it was a feeling that would make one's emotions uneasy and restless. Genkira subconsciously roused the berserker's anger, and his skin turned red. Gaia pulled Genkira back. You just fought and haven't recovered yet. We don't need you. Genkira looked at Gaia. Are you going to fight? If it was Gaia, Genkira believed that she could defeat the twisted, filthy thing in the sky. Not yet, Gaia said, looking up at the sky. A green light appeared in the sky. Genkira seemed to hear the sound of hooves. He looked up and saw a green flame spreading in the sky. It was a horse burning with green flames. Nightmare. That's right, it was Nightmare. The legendary Nightmare. Norma closed her eyes and spread her arms. She was controlling Nightmare. Or rather, she was Nightmare. Nightmare's four limbs stepped heavily on the evil spirit group. The evil spirit group was stomped to the ground, and Nightmare head-butted it again. But this time, the collision didn't cause any physical damage. Nightmare directly passed through the evil spirit group. When the shapeshifter emerged from another direction, its body was already shackled with countless chains. The other side of the chains was connected to the evil spirit group. Every evil spirit in the evil spirit group was chained up by a chain. Nightmare's lead. The evil spirit group was led by Nightmare. Dream enslavement. The evil spirits were like marionettes of the Nightmare, and they were enslaved and controlled by the Nightmare. They began to attack other evil spirits that weren't enslaved. Genkira's face was full of shock. It turned out that apart from Gaia, the supernatural organization had such a powerful witch. However, the previous attacks were just a prelude. The number of evil spirits increased. Helis also took action. Her 12 brothers and sisters turned into evil spirits and were fighting for her. Her 12 brothers and sisters were not ordinary evil spirits. They all possessed magic and magic from when they were alive. The other members of the association also joined the battle one after another. Support players like West and Patya also joined the battle. Only Gaia and Chen Zhao watched the battle calmly. Pamela had attracted too many evil spirits. To these evil spirits, Pamela, who had yet to awaken, was nourishment. It was a temptation that came from the depths of one's soul. The evil spirits of the association also joined the battle. Although it was only a small portion, it was not only because of their strong willpower, but also because of their fear of Chen Zhao. Their fear of Chen Zhao made them overcome their instincts. To put it bluntly, it was impulsiveness and restraint. Although this kind of instinctive impulse was hard to resist, It wouldn't make him lose his mind completely. They knew Chen Zhao. They knew how terrifying he was. Compared to the instinctive temptation, their fear of Chen Zhao was also ingrained in their bones. Helis getting more and more proficient in death magic. Norma's using of her bloodline has improved a lot too. Help! Just then, Aduz ran toward Chen Zhao and Gaia. Although most of the time, he only went up to cause trouble. No one stopped him. If these old bones of his want to move, then let him move a little. If not, Chen Zhao wouldn't mind if he stayed in the association and retired. Aduz was smart. He knew that running toward Chen Zhao and Gaia was the safest. However, to Gaia's surprise, the evil spirit that was chasing Aduz suddenly let out a blood-curdling screech before dissipating with a wail. Gaia looked at Chen Zhao. She had seen Chen Zhao in the past. When facing evil spirits, he didn't do anything and just made them disappear. But she couldn't tell how he did it. Not just her, even Alice, who had the most comprehensive knowledge of magic, didn't know. In the past, Chen Zhao had used Blackie's ability because no one could see him. But now, Chen Zhao had his own small world. Against a regular evil spirit, Chen Zhao's small world could easily destroy it. Of course, this was only against regular evil spirits. If it was a stronger creature, the ability would be useless. Right now, most of the association's building was enveloped in Chen Zhao's small world. Actually, even if Aduz didn't forget to run toward Chen Zhao, he wouldn't be in danger. Aduz knew that it was safe, so he told Chen Zhao and Gaia, and then went to kill evil spirits. This old man wants to prove himself more than anyone else, Gaia said, looking at Aduz's back. Oh, does Aduz have any family? Yes. I remember he said that because his daughter and son-in-law don't have a high income, he came out to work. Then he was hired by West. His family always thought that he was a security guard in a regular company, Gaia said. But he doesn't dare to let his family know that he's doing such a dangerous job. So he only puts a portion of his income into his daughter's bank card. Ever since Chen Zhao became the president of the supernatural organization, the benefits and salaries of the members had increased greatly. Of course, Aduz was one of them. Chen Zhao's original intention was that since they'd chosen to join the association, it was a dangerous job. At the very least, he had to make sure that everyone wouldn't encounter difficulties because of their family's burden. Oh, how's your son? He's already adapted to the environment here. Gaia smiled. Chen Zhao's expression was one that he would only show to his closest family. When he talked about Jerlin, he had the same feeling. Next time the association travels, bring your son. We'll see. Gaia stood up. She wasn't really willing to bring her son to mingle with the people from the association. It wasn't that she looked down on the people in the association. It was just like a father who was a cop, but didn't want his son to be one too. Genkira looked at Chen Zhao and Gaia speechlessly. Couldn't they tell how dangerous the situation outside was? They were just talking about their daily lives, right? Suddenly, Genkira heard a sound from behind. Genkira turned around and saw a crack on the glass container. Chen Zhao and Gaia also looked at the glass container. Chapter 1205. Cracks kept spreading on the glass container. Gatella suddenly took a few steps back. She could feel a terrifying chill seeping out of the container. Even though the container wasn't opened yet, the cold air seeping out of the cracks already made her shiver uncontrollably. Pamela destroyed the container herself and then walked out. Pamela was a spirit, but because the container wasn't ordinary glass, spirits couldn't penetrate it. Pamela's aura and temperament had completely changed. Pamela was feeling the unfamiliar power in her body. Gage looked at Pamela. Pamela was giving off an oppressive feeling that came from deep within her soul. Pamela was a wailing banshee. She still couldn't control her aura completely, but Pamela could feel that she was many times stronger than before. She even had the vague thought of challenging Chen Zhao. But this dangerous thought only lasted for a moment. Chen Zhao had said that he knew another veteran wailing banshee. Then he definitely knew how strong she was. Pamela landed before Chen Zhao and knelt down to greet him. President. Yes, we're not some feudal organization. Why are you kneeling on the ground? Chen Zhao said calmly. It's a mess outside because of you. Pamela had already noticed the situation outside. President, can you tell them to come back? Are you going to deal with those evil spirits alone? Yes. Pamela nodded. You can all come back. Pamela's already awake. Everyone hurried back to the headquarters and congratulated Pamela. Pamela was an old member. Other than the oldest members, she was the first to join the supernatural organization in Chen Zhao's era. Pamela had a good relationship with the people in the society, so everyone was happy for Pamela's achievements. Pamela walked out of the living room. She was already awake, but the evil spirit's eyes were still shining brightly. It was like a group of dogs looking at a piece of fat meat. Chun, can Pamela deal with it alone? Probably. The other wailing banshee I know can do it. Of course, that wailing banshee is stronger than Pamela now. After a short silence, hundreds of evil spirits charged at Pamela. Suddenly Pamela shrieked. Her voice was like a huge wave of terror, rushing in all directions. All the glass windows in the headquarters shattered in an instant. That sound was too impactful. Everything shattered in an instant. Even though Pamela wasn't targeting the members of the union, everyone still covered their ears. Frowning, Chen Zhao immediately used the small world to block the magical attack. The screech of the banshee had a great impact on the soul. To put it bluntly, the banshee's attack was a high-frequency sound mixed with magic. Although the principle was simple, only a banshee could produce such a high-frequency sound. However, this kind of long-range attack without any substance was exactly the kind of attack that the small world could restrain. Only then did everyone feel much better. As for the invading evil spirits, they didn't have his protection, and they were facing Pamela's scream head-on. In an instant, hundreds of evil spirits were crushed. That scene was too shocking. Everything was torn to shreds. Gage's face was full of shock. Was the supernatural organization really the cowardly organization that my friend had mentioned? Everyone here was extremely powerful, and every one of them could take charge of an area by themselves. Even the weakest Dedus dared to participate in the battle himself. Even though he couldn't be of much use, his courage was praiseworthy. However, these powerful spiritualists weren't leaders. This Asian was a leader. Gage couldn't understand this. In Gage's opinion, the strongest should be the leader. Or maybe this man was a strategist. He was the president mainly because he could manage. Gage guessed in his heart. However, after seeing the supernatural organization's power, he was interested too. Perhaps joining the supernatural organization was a good choice. He could also grow by interacting with them. Henry, ask your people to repair the headquarters tomorrow. Yes, President. West, arrange the new people's living arrangements and entry procedures. Yes, President. Also call Dongye Tianxi over tomorrow. We've solved his problem. He should fulfill his promise. Understood. Okay, I'm going back. The next day, Chen Zhao wanted to relax and spend time with Fei Lai and Zhilin. However, he was interrupted by West's call. President, are you free now? Can you come to the headquarters? What's up? Dongye Tianxi and Jinkira are fighting. Jinkira? The new person from yesterday, right? How did she fight with Dongye Tianxi? Jinkira doesn't just have the berserker bloodline. She's also a blacksmith, and has the forging skills passed down from her ancestors, West said. You should come to the headquarters first. It's hard to explain over the phone. Okay, I'll come now. Chen Zhao thought that it was just a quarrel between two people in the same profession. However, when he arrived at the headquarters, he saw Dongye Tianxi and Jinkira slashing at each other with their own weapons. Chen Zhao had seen Jinkira's power. He wouldn't dare to say that he was unrivaled, but he was many times stronger than a regular person. However, Dongye Tianxi was using a samurai sword, and was also very strong. The two were actually evenly matched. Seeing that the two couldn't decide the winner, Chen Zhao looked at West. West wasn't in a hurry either. He stood at the side with his coffee and savored it carefully. West, how long have they been fighting? Half an hour. Why did they fight? Previously, I called Dongye Tianxi over, and we had a good talk. Dongye Tianxi only made one request, which was to have a smithing workshop. In the end, Jinkira heard it, and Jinkira also wanted a smithing workshop. Over time, they started by ridiculing each other, and then they started to say that the other party's smithing skills were mediocre. Then it's just a competition of forging skills, and whose weapons and equipment are better. Is there a need to fight like this? Chapter 1206. Just then Gaia arrived. Beside Gaia was a little boy. He should be Gaia's child. However, Chen Zhao was surprised that Gaia would bring the child here. As for the fight between Dongya Tianqi and Gatella, no one cared anymore. The people at the entrance of the headquarters all gathered around Gaia and the boy. The 5-year-old boy looked very shy. "Handsome, what's your name?" Rupert walked up and looked down at the boy. "Evans. You should introduce yourself," Gaia said in a gentle tone while patting the boy's shoulder. The boy poked his head out from behind Gaia. Somewhat afraid, he asked, "Mom, are you going to put me in the orphanage?" Everyone was stunned. The boy seemed to think that Gaia didn't want him anymore. "No, Mom will always love you. No one can make you leave me, except your future wife." No one had ever seen such a gentle Gaia. Morid was like a gangster and still had a mohawk hairstyle. But his bad habits had been corrected under Chen Zhao's pressure. Morid walked up and threw a seed in front of Evans. Immediately, a persimmon tree grew from the ground, covered in golden persimmons. "Little guy, do you want one?" Evans looked at Morid in shock. No one expected Morid to know how to coax a kid. Their impression of Morid was still in the past. After all, he'd been a gangster before. However, after Chen Zhao became the president of the association, he'd gone to Morid's group and hung Morid's friends and himself on the outer wall of the building, forcing Morid to cut ties with them. Only then did Morid stop thinking and stay in the headquarters obediently. "Can I have one?" Of course. Dongya Tianqi and Gatella's pride was hurt. Actually, they were a bit tired after fighting for so long. When they saw Chen Zhao, they'd wanted to stop. They'd been waiting for Chen Zhao to stop so that he could judge them. But Chen Zhao had no intention of stopping them at all. Especially after Gaia and Evans arrived, everyone's attention had shifted away from them. This hurt their self-esteem even more. They felt like they were monkeys in a circus, and there was no audience at all. Not long after, Evans was attracted by everyone's enthusiasm and friendliness, and everyone played some small spells for Evans. Chen Zhao and Gaia sat on a nearby bench. "Gaia, why did you bring Evans here?" Chen Zhao asked. "Take a look at this." Gaia took out a few pieces of children's doodles, which were obviously Evans's work. However, these creations looked very strange, because these graffiti made people feel very uncomfortable. That's right, he felt uncomfortable. This was not an abstract painting. It was more like something weird and terrifying had been attached to it. "Have you asked Evans?" "Yes, he said he saw someone following him. His kindergarten teacher also called me and said that Evans seems to be hysterical. He always reports to the teacher that someone is following him. I can't be sure, so I brought him here. You or someone else can take a look. Maybe you guys can give me an answer." He could understand Gaia's uneasiness and worry. If this happened to Jerlin, Chen Zhao would also feel uneasy and worried. As parents, everyone felt the same way. Usually, when he brought Jerlin to the supermarket, if a stranger looked at her too much, Chen Zhao would glare back. "How about this?" Chen Zhao said. "Before we get to the bottom of this, we'll leave Evans in the headquarters. There are many people there. If there's really something unclean, it won't break in. Also, I'll make an amulet for Evans." Recently, Chen Zhao had been studying how to make amulets. There were many amulet-making methods in the Qingyi sect's records. Li Qing's amulet was better than Chen Zhao's. However, Chen Zhao did not want to trouble Li Qing. This was because Li Qing's cultivation was slightly weak, and she was old. She had made amulets for Chen Zhao and Ethan, but she had injured herself first. So, Chen Zhao really did not have the courage to ask Li Qing to make another amulet. "Jalek, take Evans to the mana testing room and do a full body check on him," Jalek said. Just then Kira and Dongya Tianqi stopped fighting. They both came before Chen Zhao. "Chen-san, please judge for me. You should call me president now," Chen Zhao said. Actually, Chen Zhao did not care what people called him. But right now, they both had to do the justice himself. Dongya Tianqi's way of addressing him would subtly get closer to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao hoped to maintain his dignity and fairness before the two rookies. "I haven't joined the organization yet. If they can't give me a satisfactory explanation, then I refuse to join." Dongya Tianqi felt that since Chen Zhao and West had interacted with him many times, they must have acknowledged his skills. He believed in his value. The supernatural organization would definitely not give up on him. Unfortunately, he was facing Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao stood up and looked down at Dongye Tianxi. Mr. Dongye Tianxi, you seem to have forgotten your promise. We'll help you deal with Devil Blade and Ghost King. And you won't make any requests to join the supernatural organization. Now, you're going to break your promise. Do you think that I, or the supernatural organization, can let you come and go as you please? Or could it be that you're just using us? Dongye Tianxi suddenly felt immense pressure. The people around him did not feel anything except for Dongye Tianxi. He felt as if something was pressing down on him. Even the air became extremely heavy. Chen Zhao's unreasonable attitude directly messed up Dongye Tianxi's thoughts. He did not expect Chen Zhao to be so tough. Chen Zhao was also threatening him with what he'd said before. Instantly, Dongye Tianxi lost his composure. He hurriedly said, "Chen-sen, no, President, you've misunderstood. That's not what I meant. I just hope that you can treat me fairly." "But you admit that I'm the president," Chen Zhao said coolly. "This is a good start. I hate being used, and I hate people breaking their promises even more. Now, if you have any conflicts, just say it." This guy was not strong, but his management and methods were impressive. Chapter 1207. Jinkira looked down on Chen Zhao. However, Chen Zhao had enough prestige in the association. Everyone was willing to accept Chen Zhao's management and restrictions. This meant that Chen Zhao was good enough. Jinkira didn't plan on challenging Chen Zhao's authority. "President, do you think my request is too much? You know how to forge weapons? Magic weapons?" "Yes." "Dongye Tianxi, you're in the wrong. There are more women in the association than men. Your blatant discrimination against women is very unacceptable." Chen Zhao turned his head and looked at Dongye Tianxi. "President, I'm not discriminating against women," Dongye Tianxi immediately said. Dongye Tianxi said immediately. If he did not explain himself properly after being accused by Chen Zhao, how could he continue working here in the future? "I think that some jobs should be differentiated between men and women. I don't think a woman can forge a good weapon." Dongye Tianxi was actually like most Japanese. He was a straight man or a male chauvinist. Or perhaps it could be called male chauvinism. Perhaps this idea of his could find supporters in Japan. However, this wasn't Japan. Chen Zhao couldn't support this idea no matter what. After all, there were more women than men in the association. "You think I'm not as good as you? Then let's compete. We'll compete in our most professional fields. Whoever loses will be the other's disciple. Do you dare?" Jinkira was infuriated. Actually, if Jinkira hadn't said this, Chen Zhao was going to support her and ask Dongye Tianxi to apologize. Because no matter how good Jinkira's forging was, Dongye Tianxi's words were very offensive to women. However, Jinkira had started this bet herself. What else could Chen Zhao say? "Let's compete. If I lose, I'll commit seppuku." Chen Zhao was shocked. This was the most perverted Japanese custom. Chen Zhao respected other people's customs, but he really couldn't stand it in his own territory. If a warrior lost, they would commit seppuku. Circumcision was a very, very painful thing, because the victim would not die immediately after being circumcised. Therefore, people who committed seppuku often couldn't complete the process themselves. At this time, there would be a designated executioner. This executioner was called jiekuo. He would wait for the person who was about to perform a disembowelment to be unable to continue. Then, jiekuo would stand behind and chop off the person's head. "A competition is a competition," Chen Zhao said coldly. "I hope that every member of the association has the courage to take responsibility. If anyone loses, they have to follow the agreement and become the other party's disciple. You can't run away by cutting your abdomen." Chen Zhao didn't want Dongye Tianxi to ruin the atmosphere of the association. If he won and forced Jingora to perform a disembowelment, what would that mean? If he lost, he would happily commit seppuku. How was he going to behave in the society in the future? Besides, Dongye Tianxi still had a wife and daughter. Coming to the supernatural organization, and then going home to commit seppuku. How unfair would that be to his wife and child? If Dongye Tianxi wanted to use cruel methods to deal with his enemies, he would not hesitate. Chen Zhao wouldn't object to any kind of method. Anyway, Chen Zhao had done a lot of perverted tortures and killings. He often did things that disgusted him. But he couldn't accept suicide. Yes, President. I'll do that. But I won't lose. But I won't take her as my disciple either. My disciple doesn't need a woman. Chen Zhao covered his head. He already regretted recruiting this iron-willed man. If he'd known, he would have chased him away. How do you guys plan on competing? Chen Zhao asked. Forging weapons, of course, Jingora said. How about this? Dongye Tianqi said. President also needs weapons, so we'll each forge a weapon. Whoever likes the weapon more will be the winner. President, what kind of weapon do you need? Jingora asked. A sword. I want a sword, a heavy sword. The more durable, the better. The hilt must be within the range that a normal person can hold with one hand. Within this range, the heavier the better. The more durable and heavy, the better. I don't have a strict requirement for mana conductivity. It's best if you can have it, but if not, I won't force it. The heavy sword Chen Zhao wanted was mainly for close-range combat. When he used it, his main attack method was to coordinate with his speed and strength. Mana wouldn't be poured into the sword, so Chen Zhao didn't need much with, or without mana conductivity. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and then said, also I need 12 light swords. They also have to be durable, and have a high requirement for mana conductivity. Chen Zhao wanted 12 light swords to control swords with music, so the higher the mana conductivity, the better. At the same time, he wanted them to be light. Light meant that Chen Zhao could control his music more easily. Actually, compared to the first time, Chen Zhao was already much stronger. He could control more swords now. However, Chen Zhao was more familiar with 12 swords. If he controlled more swords, Chen Zhao's battle rhythm might be messed up. It would be like putting the cart before the horse. Or he could control thousands of swords like Old Turtle, using absolute quantity to make up for quality. If he couldn't reach Old Turtle's level, he'd continue to use 12 swords to fight. When Chen Zhao's quantity increased by leaps and bounds, he would consider practicing more sword riding. President, you asked for a lot. I'm afraid we can't complete it in a short time. Yes, just the materials will take a long time. If you lack any materials, ask West. If the society doesn't have them, we'll try our best to get them for you. If we don't lack materials, we can complete it in about 10 days, Dongye Tianqi estimated. I want the same amount of time, Gatella said. Okay, we'll wait for the 13th. I'll decide who wins and who loses. Chen Zhao looked at West. Go and build 2 workshops. Yes, President. Zhaolig had just gotten rid of Jin Kira and Dongye Tianqi when he came out with Evans. President Gaia. How is it? Is there anything strange about Evans? President, Evans is just a normal kid. At least, the society's equipment didn't detect any mana in him. Oh, so there's no problem? Chen Zhao asked. Normally, being able to see things normal people couldn't was mostly due to one's spiritual body. But since it was a normal person's body, they probably couldn't see supernatural things. But this made things more troublesome. Chapter 1208. Hysteria was actually a mental illness too. Mental illnesses had always been the most troublesome for humans. Even Chen Zhao was often helpless when it came to mental illnesses, especially children. This was especially true for children. Children's minds were very active, and because they didn't have a complete world view, they often made some unrealistic fantasies. However, adults often didn't approve of these fantasies. Children would become autistic or even depressed. Mental illnesses mostly required communication and companionship. Gaia, spend more time with Evans. If you don't have time, let the child stay at the headquarters. Of course, it's fine if he goes to kindergarten with children of the same age. Anyway, he needs company. Try not to let Evans be alone. Also, if Evans says that he saw something, don't deny it, regardless of whether you saw it or not. Chen, is Evans's condition serious? Actually, children's minds are the most active when they're 5 to 10 years old. Their brains start to accept large amounts of knowledge, so it's natural for children to fantasize. After this age, children's psychology will gradually mature, and their worldview will become complete. They'll gradually forget those unrealistic fantasies. Both fantasies and hysteria only happen when children are lonely. As long as there's company, they won't think too much. Also, we can't be completely sure that Evans is hysteria. It might be something we don't know yet. Gaia looked at Evans from afar. Evans was playing with Rupert at the moment. Right now, Evans didn't seem to have any problems at all. It wasn't that Evans would definitely develop autism or depression. Actually, hysteria was a common mental illness for children. The best treatment for hysteria was companionship. One couldn't use a forceful attitude to deny or correct it. Children believed that what they saw was the truth, even if it was just their imagination. Do you want to see a psychologist? You can see a psychiatrist, but you can't go to a hospital that's too obvious. Children are very resistant to hospitals. Once they find out that they're sent to a hospital, they'll be very sensitive to the fact that they're sick. By the way, I know a psychiatrist. She's also involved in some supernatural incidents. I can make an appointment with her and ask her to come to the headquarters to give Evans psychological counseling. I think you can do psychological counseling. Gaia trusted him more. I know this theoretical knowledge. I've been exposed to such topics in school, but I'm not a professional. Professional matters should be left to the professionals. Okay, make an appointment with that psychologist. Gaia had absolute trust in Chen Zhao. I planned to move to the headquarters. After all, Gaia had her own job, and she was willing to give it up for Evans. However, she was more happy to have the best of both worlds. There was definitely no shortage of people in the headquarters, and most of the people in the headquarters were quite optimistic. Even the gloomy Helios was a girl with a soft heart. And the people here are not prejudiced. In addition, the environment here was good, so Gaia was willing to let Evans live here. Even if Evans had to come into contact with some firearms, as long as Evans's physical and mental health could be improved, it didn't matter. In the afternoon, Chen Zhao received a call from Denver, asking him to return to Mountain Town. He had something to discuss. Not only did Denver invite Chen Zhao, but also Dean Slott. When Chen Zhao saw Dean Slott, he took the initiative to congratulate him. Dean, congratulations. You've been recognized by the townspeople again. To be honest, Chen Zhao was not surprised at all that Dean Slott had become the mayor again. It could be seen from the way the new mayor governed Mountain Town that he didn't have any management talent or political ability. It was impossible for him to defeat the old fox, Dean Slott, with such a standard. Even when Dion Slott stirred up trouble in the town, the new mayor did not react in time. By the time he found out, Dean Slott had already chased him out of office. Chen, you're joking. I have to thank you. Without your support, I wouldn't have been able to stay as mayor for long. Dean Slott had promised to rebuild the brewery in 3 months. If he could not rebuild it in 3 months, he would probably become the shortest mayor in Mountain Town's history. That's why I'm here to talk about rebuilding the brewery. I don't think we have any objections to rebuilding the brewery, right? Dean Slott asked. Indeed. Chen Zhao nodded. At the same time, he glanced at Denver. We just need to discuss some details. Chen, what details do you not understand? The first is the ownership of the brand, Denver said. Chen, do you want to take the old brand for yourself? Not take it for myself. I want to buy it. I hope that there won't be any trademark disputes in the future. You know that trademark disputes are usually caused by multiple owners. So I hope that we can clarify the ownership of the trademark. How much do you want to buy it for? Dean Slott asked. 500,000, Denver said, picking up where Chen left off. That's impossible. The original Mountain Beer's annual turnover is more than $10 million. And the annual profit is also more than $2 million. You want to buy this trademark with just $500,000? That's impossible. Dion Sloat's reaction was very strong. Even Chen Zhao felt that Denver's price was too low. But that was how business was. It was like bargaining in a market. One side would ask for a sky-high price, while the other side would bargain. Chen, Mr. Denver, actually, there's nothing wrong with joint ownership of the trademark. You don't have to spend a single cent to own and use the trademark. I can also promise that I won't interfere with the production and operation of the brewery. Denver did not believe this. Chen Zhao would not believe it either. If the trademark was in someone else's hands, it was like their lifeline was in someone else's hands. If the trademark did not increase its value and earn a few $1,000,000 a year, the mountain town government might not take it seriously. But what if the trademark's value increased by 10 times? What if it increased by 100 times? By then, the mountain town government would demand a hefty fee for using the trademark. If the two sides could not reach an agreement, even if Mountain Town only owned 50% of the trademark, they could still force the brewery to stop production. The trademark could only be sold with 100% rights. Chapter 1209. In the end, Chen Zhao bought the trademark for $2.5 million. Usually, the value of a trademark was around 10 times the annual profit of the trademark. However, Mountain Beer's brand value had already dropped greatly because it had left the market. So $2.5 million was within a range that both sides could accept. Then Chen Zhao and Denver were most concerned about the ownership of the land needed to build the factory. First, the production needed water. Then it needed water from Mirror Lake. So it couldn't be too far from Mirror Lake. Otherwise, if it was built on Chen Zhao's private land, everything would be fine. But Chen Zhao also didn't want to build a factory on his private land. Although the brewery wouldn't have any pollution problems, Chen Zhao still didn't like it. So, Chen Zhao was more inclined to buy a piece of land near his private land. The land didn't need to be too big. 20 hectares was enough. The difference in land wasn't that big. Of course, Dion Slot wanted to just rent the land, or exchange the land for a certain share of the brewery's profits. Chen Zhao and Denver, on the other hand, wanted to buy the land directly. Only when everything belonged to Chen Zhao would he be able to make the final decision. Although the mountain town government wouldn't make things difficult for the brewery if they rented the land, there was still a certain risk. If they had a falling out in the future, the government would take back the land. Then the brewery would definitely have to move, which would affect production or even stop production. In the end, the value of the brand would be affected. Chen Zhao was someone who liked to have everything in his hands. He was no longer the person who had just come to America and wandered around. He had the power to control everything now. Of course, Chen Zhao would only touch the things and fields that he could control. For example, doing business, Chen Zhao knew that he wasn't cut out for it. So he wouldn't interfere with the brewery's production and management. Nevertheless, Chen Zhao was sure that the brewery could make money. This was why Chen Zhao had entered this industry. Chen Zhao wasn't that great. He wasn't doing this for the people of Mountain Town. At the end of the day, Chen Zhao's goal was simple: to make money. In the end, Chen Zhao bought a piece of barren land 15 kilometers west of Mirror Lake, instead of the brewery's original location. Dion was willing to sell the land to Chen Zhao at a low price, but Chen Zhao had to agree to some conditions. For example, within 3 years of the brewery's opening, more than 70% of the employees must be residents of Mountain Town, and the minimum salary must be less than $600 per week. For an ordinary worker, a weekly salary of $600 was considered a normal salary. However, this was only for ordinary employees. The salaries of some technical workers and management personnel were definitely higher than this level. Dion Slot's request was not only to provide jobs for the town's residents, but also to allow the mountain town's employees to infiltrate the management. This was the only way to control the production and operation of the brewery. As for this, Chen Zhao believed that Denver could handle it. After Dean Slot left, Chen Zhao and Denver discussed again. Chen Zhao realized that if he wanted to achieve something in the first year, he needed to produce at least 100,000 tons. It wasn't a small fight like Chen Zhao had originally planned. In this case, the investment required was very large. To ensure that they did not make a loss in the first year, they would need at least $30 million. This was far more than what Chen Zhao had initially expected. He didn't lack money now. Even if he ran out of money, the bank would be happy to lend him money. This was because Chen Zhao had a lot of high-quality assets. However, the investment of $30 million still exceeded Chen Zhao's initial expectations. Chen Zhao's original plan was to build 2 beer production lines and produce around 20,000 tons per year. However, Denver's plan was to expand the scale of production The result of expanding the scale of production was, of course, more investment. This wasn't something that could be solved with just a few more production lines. The corresponding facilities also needed to be expanded, such as the fermenter area, the sewage treatment facilities, the storage warehouse, and so on. They all needed to be expanded. The number of employees also needed to be greatly increased. Denver, after the 30 million, I don't need to invest anymore? Chen Zhao asked. Mr. Chen, in principle, you don't need to invest anymore. If you need more, we can get a loan from the bank. I don't like loans. President, you've made a mistake. Taking a loan is actually more cost-effective than taking out money from your personal account. The interest on such a huge loan is usually not very high. In a situation where the income is equal, the bank's interest rate will be much lower than the rate at which your money depreciates if you leave it in the bank. Secondly, after you take a loan from the bank, your interests will be linked to the bank. When you deal with a lot of problems, the bank will help you. For example, if you put pressure on the local government, or even the Los Angeles government, the bank will take the initiative to help you. Also, if you contact the seller, the bank will help you as much as possible. Most people's understanding was that the bank was a place to store money. In reality, it wasn't like that. The biggest function of the bank wasn't to store money. The bank was a very complicated business system. They were involved in any industry that could make money. The bank would even own shares in many industries through the mortgage of the borrower. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and said, I said that you'll be in charge of the brewery's production, and I won't interfere. If you think that the loan is beneficial to the brewery's development, then we'll do as you say. Denver nodded. He also liked working with a boss like Chen Zhao. For managers, they weren't afraid of ignorant investors. They were afraid of investors who were too controlling. Investors only wanted profits. They didn't need to have an absolute understanding of an industry. However, if they interfered with the manager's arrangements without understanding, they might disrupt the original development process and rhythm. Also, we need to start building the brewery as soon as possible, Denver said. Chen Zhao nodded. I'll contact the construction company as soon as possible. After saying goodbye in Denver, Chen Zhao called Felwood Cisco. Mr. Felwood, can your company take on another project now? Felwood was still supervising the construction at Chen Zhao's private beach construction site. When he heard Chen Zhao's first sentence, he was dumbfounded. Was this rich guy planning to build something again? I'm planning to invest in a new brewery. The construction will cost around $10 million. Can your company take on this project? Yes, it can. Felwood suppressed his ecstasy. When are you free? Let's talk face to face. He wanted to hug Chen Zhao and give him a big kiss. To him, Chen Zhao was his god of fortune. How about this? I'll go to the beach construction site tomorrow. I want to see how it's going. Chapter 12:10. The next day, Chen Zhao went to the beach construction site. When Chen Zhao arrived at the construction site, the workers all greeted him. In America, construction workers were all high-income people. Their annual salary ranged from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even a normal worker could get an annual salary of 70 to 80,000. Hearing that Chen Zhao was here, Felwood hurried out of the construction site to welcome him. Mr. Chen, you're here. To Felwood, Chen Zhao was a true god of fortune. Chen Zhao had given him all the big projects that his company was currently working on. Now another project was delivered to his door. How could he not like Chen Zhao? Chen Zhao stood on the beach and looked at the cliff in the distance. The flat top of the cliff had been cut off, and a large portion had been excavated. Because Chen Zhao wanted a villa, he had to excavate a large portion of the cliff's rock stratum. However, he hadn't started construction yet. He'd only completed the foundation. He also had to pave the road and clean the beach. Felwood kept explaining the progress of the project to Chen Zhao. By the way, Mr. Chen, don't you think we should give this beach a new name? Let's call it Moon Beach, Chen Zhao said casually. Chen Zhao really didn't have much talent in naming. This was the only name that popped up in his mind. He might as well use it. After that, Chen Zhao and Felwood discussed the construction of the new brewery. Felwood wanted to continue working with Chen Zhao. Thus, Felwood Cisco gave Chen Zhao a good price for the beer factory. Basically, he didn't make much money. Of course, a project didn't make any money on the surface. There were no direct benefits, but there were still some benefits. For example, some architects and engineers designed and built famous skyscrapers, not only for actual income, but also for fame. Then, Chen Zhao gave Denver's contact information to Felwood. Mr. Felwood, go do your work. I'll walk around by myself. Okay. Then I won't keep you company. Chen Zhao wandered around Bright Moon Beach alone. He was looking forward to his new home. Just then he received a call from Dell. Hey Chen, are you free? What? Master wants you to come over. Master? Oh, are you at Sister Ching's place? Yes, I'm at the motel. Alright, I'll head over now. When Chen Zhao arrived at the motel, Ethan was crossing his legs. Seeing Chen Zhao, he pointed behind him. Behind? Let's talk later. With that, he went to the back of the motel. When Chen Zhao went to the backyard, he saw Dell holding a long sword and standing in a pine pose. Li Qing stood at the side. Chen Zhao went up to greet her. Sister Qing. Mr. Chen, you're here. Auntie Qing, I heard from Dell that you called me. What's up? Dell learned the demon-piercing finger. It's a small spell that can subdue demons. My request to him is to be able to see through your green clothes cloud. Mr. Chen, you don't mind, do you? I don't mind. Dell walked up to Chen Zhao. Chen, don't underestimate me. I can pierce wood with a finger now. Chen Zhao nodded. You can try it on me now. Chen, I'm serious. Don't be careless. I'm not careless. Go ahead. Chen Zhao said as he activated the green clothes cloud. The green clothes cloud used magic as its source. Normal people couldn't see it, but Dell was a warlock now, so he could see a green barrier covering Chen Zhao's body. Master, when can I learn the green clothes cloud? You can learn it whenever you want, but whether you can master it or not is another matter. Li Qing only hoped for a successor now. Even though Dell's talent was mediocre, she still taught him carefully. Li Qing didn't have the same rules as before. She didn't have to hold back when she taught a disciple, causing it to be lost in the end. Also, no matter if it was a domestic sect or a foreign master-disciple inheritance, they all had a common characteristic. When a master taught a disciple, he would randomly label the disciple. If the disciple killed a bug, the disciple might be seen as violent. To put it bluntly, the master just didn't like the disciple. Could stomping a bug to death prove that he was a cruel person? This caused many disciples to go down the wrong path, because of the master's prejudice. To put it bluntly, it was the master's own prejudice. As for Li Qing, the green clothes sect was about to be destroyed. If she still stuck to the old rules, she'd probably bring the green clothes sect's inheritance to her grave. Chen, be careful. Dell had tried the magic piercing finger's power. Just now, he'd used it to pierce through a small tree. Right now, his fingertips glowed with green light. Chen Zhao could feel the faint magic power on Dell. Chen Zhao estimated Dell's magic. It should be around 20 to 30. This amount of mana was already very weak. Using the magic piercing finger was also difficult. Dell said, I'm coming. With that, he suddenly pointed at Chen Zhao's chest. Crack! Dell's finger was broken. Ah! Dell clutched his finger and howled in pain. Chen, why is your chest so hard? It's because you haven't mastered the magic piercing finger. Li Qing shook her head. Dell's magic piercing finger didn't even cause a ripple in Chen Zhao's Qingyi mist. It was obvious how weak it was. The three sat to the side and Chen Zhao straightened Dell's bones. Master, can Chen's Qingyi mist stop bullets? That depends on your magic. Even if you can learn Qingyi mist now, you can only barely stop bullets. You can't completely block bullets. Mr. Chen should be able to block bullets. Li Qing's eyes were very accurate. Indeed, when Chen Zhao first learned Qingyi mist, he couldn't completely block bullets either. But now Chen Zhao's body was strong enough. Even without the Qingyi armor, he could block bullets with his body alone. Master, the hotel opens tomorrow. Are you coming? Dell asked. No, I still have work, Li Qing said. Li Qing said, this 8 trigrams mirror is my gift to you. Hang it at the front door of the hotel. Thank you, Master. Dell looked at Chen Zhao. Chen, I don't need to invite you. I told you last time. that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.